Chapter 575. On March 13th, Chunfei Media completed its registration in Beijing, and the two studios officially merged into a new company. The registered capital of Beijing Chunfei Media Company Limited is 10 million yuan. The legal representative is Lu Chun. Chunfei is the chairman, and Lu Shi is the general manager. The three hold 45%, 45%, and 10% of the shares respectively. The company is headquartered in Building C17 of the New Era Art Center in Beijing. At the same time, the official V of the two studios and Wei's blog was canceled, and the official V of Chunfei Media was launched at the same time. On the same day, the number of followers exceeded the 1 million mark. The establishment of Chunfei Media caused a lot of repercussions in the circle and even made many big shots in the industry vigilant. Chunfei studio was established very early, and Luchin studio was relatively new. The two studios had one thing in common, that was they basically only served themselves and never signed other artists. The only exception was Jejentana, but Chunfei signed this Mongolian girl for another reason, which was completely different from ordinary artists. Now that Chunfei Media was established, the two studios joined forces and upgraded to a real company, and the scope of business covered pop music, TV series, and movies. The business strategy was bound to change dramatically. Looking at Lu Chen's development trajectory in the past 2 years, people couldn't help but feel shocked. Lu Chen first changed domestic pop music, stirring up the music industry with amazing talent and exuberant creative ability, making 2016 his pop year. While sweeping the pop music world, Lu Chen crossed over into the film and television industry. A self-written and self-acted Autumn in My Heart and A Full House of Romance both created a ratings miracle and won the ratings champion in South Korea. The results were as dazzling as the sun, and no one could ignore them. However, after great success in the TV series, Lu Chen was still not satisfied. He went to Hong Kong to set up a new studio and filmed his first movie, A Chinese Ghost Story. This movie, based on strange tales from a Chinese studio, only invested 30 million yuan, but it beat the blockbuster Painted Skin, which invested more than 100 million yuan in the box office war. At present, the cumulative box office has exceeded 100 million yuan, and even the peripherals have been sold for tens of millions. What made people speechless was that Lu Chen took care of the director, male lead, screenwriter, and soundtrack of A Chinese Ghost Story. The movie would soon be released in China. With all these, he teamed up with Chunfei Air. How could it not make people in the industry feel like wolves are coming? Of course, many people wanted to cooperate with Chunfei Media, especially those who had worked with the two studios in the past. They sent their congratulations and blessings on their blogs. Especially those who had worked with the two studios before. Chunfei Media, Fei, and Media. The 100 minutes of Chinese Fei, Fei Media. And Media. The domestic film censorship system was unique in the world, and the scope of control was also very large. Many domestic films were shot down during the script review stage, and even slightly sensitive content was not allowed. That was not the worst part. If the script was rejected, they would just have to go back and rewrite it, which would only waste some printing fees and brain cells. At most, it would take a little more time. The worst part was that after the movie was painstakingly shot and submitted for review, they would only receive the word failed in the end. Chun is Chun Wei Fei. You are Chun. Fei Chun is like you is standing. Chun, in the end, you can only wait for a cold answer and some vague comments. If you don't know the people behind the door, you can't even get a real opinion on the changes. This was the despair of a filmmaker who posted on his personal blog after his film was rejected. Also, it was not easy to pass the review. In the end, a large part of the plot and scenes in the film were cut. As a result, the audience was often confused when watching the film. They were clearly fighting in the room, but they suddenly came out and sat in the car. Those who did not know the truth often scolded the director for making no sense and editing. However, the director was really wronged. Because the bloody and violent scenes were cut, it was not only domestic films. Even imported Hollywood blockbusters could not escape this big scissors. As a result, many audiences went home to search for the original version on the internet after watching the film in the cinema. The waters here were too deep. If one were to really talk about it, it wouldn't be a problem to compile a thick ancient book. Later, there were too many opinions. Even the Americans tried to pressure them through various channels. Since 2010, the film's censorship system of the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television had been reformed. In general, the speed of the review had been accelerated and the intensity of editing had been reduced. Even so, A Chinese Ghost Story still had 2 so-called erotic scenes cut. In fact, this was already within Liu Chen's expectations. It would be strange if the censors of the State Administration of Radio, Film and Television did not cut it. These 9 minutes of content had basically no impact on the plot. It was already very satisfactory to get such a result. The large-scale publicity of A Chinese Ghost Story could finally be fully carried out in the country. Liu Chen had set a budget of up to 30 million yuan for the domestic publicity of this movie. Although it was a glorious achievement to have a box office of more than 100 million yuan in Xinjiang, a film with a box office of more than 100 million yuan in the country was nothing at all. Especially after 2010, the box office records were constantly being broken. 300 million, 500 million, 1 billion, 5 billion, 2 billion. Breaking the record was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. Although many films that broke the record had the phenomenon of the box office being flooded, there is no doubt that the popularity of the domestic film market was undeniable. The box office champion of the past was nothing today. The explosion of the market brought about amazing benefits, and amazing benefits brought about fierce competition. At this time, the role of publicity and marketing was big. It was indispensable. If a new film did not promote or hype and relied solely on word of mouth to win the audience, there were examples, but it was definitely a rare existence. There was a lot of chance and luck involved. Cinema chains wouldn't even give a lot of screenings for obscure movies. Precious resources shouldn't be wasted on nameless people. This was the reality, the rule of the industry. The publicity budget that Liu Chen had set for A Chinese Ghost Story was actually not considered high. This was because before A Chinese Ghost Story, the domestic publicity for The Painted Skin had already been carried out vigorously. Huawan Pictures was obviously unwilling to fail in Xinjiang and had bet on the domestic market. And the opponent that A Chinese Ghost Story faced was not only The Painted Skin. Chapter 576. On March 20th, Battle of Vulcan will be released, and on April 9th, Legend of the Holy Land will be released. In the conference room of Chunfei Media, a closed-door meeting of the company's executives was being held. Wan Xiaoquan spoke into the microphone with a serious expression. These 2 Hollywood special effects blockbusters are our biggest opponents. Unless we delay A Chinese Ghost Story to be released in May, we can't avoid them. Wan Xiaoquan returned to the capital from Hong Kong 3 days ago. The day before he returned, A Chinese Ghost Story, which had exhausted its box office potential, ended perfectly in the major cinemas in Hong Kong. The cumulative box office earnings were 105 million yuan, ranking in the top 20 in Hong Kong's history. If Hollywood blockbusters were excluded, A Chinese Ghost Story was ranked 7th among the Hong Kong and Sino-Hong Kong co-productions, and this did not include the 42 million-plus peripheral sales. As the actual director of the movie, Wan Xiaoquan's contribution could not be ignored. In addition to the generous rewards, he also received half a month of long-term leave. However, Wan Xiaoquan did not choose to go on vacation. Instead, he immediately returned to China to help Liu Chen with the publicity for Chinese Ghost Story in China. He had quite a lot of experience in this regard. Others might not understand, but Wan Xiaoquan's name was not on A Chinese Ghost Story. Not only was he not disappointed or resentful, but he also racked his brains to come up with ideas for Chunfei Media. It was a little unbelievable. However, Wan Xiaoquan's gratitude to Liu Chen had always been buried in his heart. He was not very good at expressing his feelings, so he used his actions to repay Liu Chen's kindness. Lu Chun had helped Wan Shaoquan when he was at his lowest and gave him precious trust. He allowed him to make a comeback in Hong Kong and gave him a work that was destined to become a classic. It really did not matter if it had a name or not. What mattered was that if his name was in the subtitles of the movie, it would not pass the review of the SARFT. Moreover, Wan Shaoquan sincerely admired Lu Chun. The script of A Chinese Ghost Story was written by Lu Chun, and many of the scenes were drawn by Lu Chun. Coupled with the excellent soundtrack, it would not be a problem for another director. With all these reasons, Wan Shaoquan needed to prove his ability even more. How could he have the leisure to go on a vacation? Recently, A Chinese Ghost Story had been released in China, but the situation was not optimistic. Showdown on Vulcan was a sci-fi blockbuster that Superstar Pictures had invested $170 million in. It had already earned $270 million in the box office in America, and it was aggressively moving to China. The publicity was even more fanfare. The CEO of Superstar Pictures, Douglas, was extremely confident that he would be able to obtain over 1 billion yuan in the domestic box office. In comparison, Lion Pictures' fantasy blockbuster Legend of the Holy Land had a weaker reputation, but the investment for this movie was not much worse than Battle of Vulcan. It had reached $150 million and was about to be released in the United States. If A Chinese Ghost Story were to be released at this time, it would have to face the attacks of two Hollywood blockbusters. It would undoubtedly be quite difficult to achieve Lu Chun's goal of $500 million box office. However, it would be even worse if it was delayed until May. At present, there were already pirated versions of A Chinese Ghost Story on the internet. However, they were all CM and TS versions, which were the so-called gun versions and quasi-gun versions. The quality was very poor and was not enough to threaten the box office. Now, the country still attached great importance to the copyright protection of domestically produced films, including Hong Kong films. If a high-definition version was released during the screening period, it would definitely be severely attacked. After it was taken off the schedule, the impact would be much smaller. As the impact of the CM and TS versions was very small, the producers turned a blind eye to it. It was fine if A Chinese Ghost Story was released recently, but if it was delayed for too long, it would be very difficult to control the high-definition version. At that time, the impact on the box office would be even greater. A Chinese Ghost Story will not be delayed, Lu Chun said decisively. Even if it's May, there will still be Hollywood blockbusters competing. We can't avoid it. We might as well fight with them. It doesn't matter even if we lose. What's more, we might not lose. The cost of A Chinese Ghost Story had long been recovered, and the extra profits were more than enough to be used for domestic publicity. No matter how much they earned in the box office, it was still a profit. If they were still afraid of competition, then they might as well not make a movie. Many domestic filmmakers had a phobia of beauty. The box office failure of a film was often blamed on the Hollywood blockbusters competing at the same time. They lamented that they were inferior in terms of technical strength and complained about the country's openness to the film market. As a result, the protection month for domestic films in July and August became a hot commodity. All the film companies were sharpening their heads to drill into it, fighting for a slot. In recent years, domestic films had relied on youth films, idol films, and big IP films to recover some of their decline. The situation had finally improved a lot. A Chinese Ghost Story was not related to these three genres, but Lu Chun was not afraid of Hollywood blockbusters. This was because he had never thought of making a profit in the domestic film market. His goal was long-term, building a high-standard indoor studio and setting up a special effects production team were all around this goal. Lu Chun's confidence and courage to face the challenge infected everyone present. Wan Shaoquan smiled and said, "Then we have to increase our publicity efforts and formulate a targeted publicity strategy. Boss, you and the lady boss should show off your love on the blog more. The effect will definitely be good and it will save money." Everyone could not help but laugh. They did not expect Wan Shaoquan, who had always been serious, to also joke. Lu Chun smiled bitterly. "I will try my best." Although Wan Xiaoquan was joking, what he said was very reasonable. As far as the movie A Chinese Ghost Story was concerned, the tens of millions of fans of Lu Chun and Chen Fei were undoubtedly the biggest ticket bank. The two of them increased their interaction on the blog and revealed some small information. It was all side publicity for A Chinese Ghost Story. The meeting ended after 2 hours. It was worth mentioning that the painted skin, which had already been released, was not included in the discussion. Because no one regarded the painted skin, a loser, as an opponent, there was naturally no value in discussing it. The head of Huaguan Pictures, Chui Xingxian, would probably vomit 3 mouthfuls of blood if he knew about it. After the meeting, Lu Chen had just returned to his office when Lu Shi's assistant, Chen Xian, came over. His sister had something important to talk to him about. Lu Chen felt a little strange, so he immediately rushed to Lu Shi's general manager's office. "What's wrong?" Lu Shi did not answer directly. Instead, she turned the computer screen on the table 180 degrees for him to see. The web page opened on the screen was the entertainment section of a large domestic website. The bold and black title on it was very eye-catching, causing Lu Chen's eyelids to twitch. The Golden Luan Awards nominations are leaked. The popular drama Full of Romance is not on the list. Chapter 577. The Golden Luan Awards was one of the 2 major domestic TV awards. In terms of scale and influence, in the past decade, the Golden Luan Awards had surpassed the older Yulan Awards to become the #1 domestic TV awards. Unlike the Yulan Awards, which was heavily influenced by the government, the Golden Luan Awards were the only national TV awards that were approved by the relevant government departments and voted on by the audience. To a large extent, they represented the direction and trends of the TV industry in the past year. As last year's #1 urban TV series, it was inconceivable that Full House of Romance would not be nominated for the Golden Luan Awards. This made Lu Chun, who didn't pay much attention to the Golden Luan Awards, angry and confused. He carefully read through the entertainment news. The content of the news was very long. First, it mentioned that the biennial Golden Luan Awards would be announced at the end of the month, but the name of last year's popular TV series, Full House of Romance, was not on the list. Based on this insider information, the reporters analyzed and guessed that the reason why Full House of Romance had not been nominated for the Golden Luan Awards was the same as why Autumn in My Heart had only received 2 nominations for the Yulan Awards last year. The basic purpose of the 2 major TV awards was that domestic TV series should follow the direction of positive energy. They needed to promote social justice, promote the values of a new era, and increase national confidence and cohesion. They should not judge the quality and value of a work based on the ratings. It wasn't just Autumn and Full House of Romance. Other urban TV series, idol dramas, comedies, and so on, which had good ratings, did not have much success in the 2 awards. In the end, the reporter expressed his regret that Full House of Romance did not get nominated for the Golden Luan Awards. He hoped that the final results would change so that romantic idol dramas could also get on the stage. The article had only been published for a little over an hour, but there were already over 5,000 comments. What's the Golden Luan Awards? Never heard of it. This comment received over 1,000 likes and was at the top of the list. I've been represented again. 789 likes and was at the 2nd place. It's understandable that the Yulan Awards didn't talk about the ratings. After all, it's a government award. If the Golden Luan Awards followed suit, then what's the point of having the audience vote? Why not just decide on the award? Haha, the person above makes it sound like the Golden Luan Awards isn't decided. It doesn't matter if it wins or not. It's enough as long as the ratings are high. What's the point? There are so many jealous people. I think this is the right way. Holy sh**t. Last time it was the Yulan Awards, and this time it's the Golden Luan Awards. Lu Chun is really being suppressed. It's hard to say if it's suppression, but it's true that it's boring. I don't care, I don't pay attention. Among these comments, most of them were dissatisfied with the Golden Luan Awards. There were also some who felt that it was unfair for Full of Romance. There were also a few who were probably Lu Chen's fans who were so indignant that they directly scolded the awards. Lu Chen didn't finish reading the long comment section. After a few minutes, he closed the webpage. He asked Lu Shi, "What do you think?" Lu Shi shook her head and said, "I haven't heard anything yet, so I can't confirm the authenticity of the news. Actually, even if it's true, it doesn't matter. We don't need this award." When Lu Shi first saw this news, she also felt very angry. It was a clear rule that urban idol dramas didn't have any competition in the two awards. It was normal for them to not be liked by the judges, but it didn't even get a nomination. That was really too much. Full of Romance's ratings in 2016 could be said to be superior to its peers, and it even won first place in the ratings in Korea. The Golden Won Awards committee ignored the results of this drama. Weren't they afraid of being scolded? But then again, among the domestic pop music, television drama, and movie awards, the Yulon Awards and the Golden Won Awards had the least influence. In the past, the two awards had a lot of dirty secrets, such as predetermined awards, voting fraud, and so on. There had always been a lot of controversy in the industry. It might not be a bad thing for Full of Romance not to get involved in this mess. In addition, whether this news was true or not still needed to be verified, so there was no need to get angry over it. His sister was afraid that Lu Chan would be depressed and angry, so she comforted him a few more words. Lu Chen smiled and said, "If there's nothing, then there's nothing. We have enough things to do. There's no need to *ring ring ring*. Before he finished speaking, the phone on his desk rang. Lu Shi gestured to Lu Chun and then picked up the phone. "Hello, Chinfei Media." "Well, yes, what's the matter?" I haven't heard of this matter yet. I don't know the situation, so I can't comment." "I'm really sorry. It's not convenient for us to accept interviews for the time being." "Thank you, goodbye." After talking for a while, Lu Shi put down the phone and said, "It's a reporter from Entertainment Express. It's about the Golden Won Awards. He wanted to interview you, but I refused." Lu Chen nodded. At first, he was also very angry, but after reading the online report, his mood calmed down. Whether or not Full of Romance could get a nomination for the Golden Won Awards in the end, it would not affect the status of this TV series in the industry. Not to mention anything else, Xiangjiang Satellite TV and ATV had offered a very high price for this TV series. They would not care about the Golden Won Awards or the Yulon Awards. In the end, it was the results that spoke. Whether it was being suppressed or being ignored, maintaining a normal mind could go further in the film and television industry. It was also right not to accept interviews from reporters. Those reporters who wanted to see the world in chaos hoped that the two sides would fight because of this and make up news like Lu Chan bombards the Golden Won Awards to attract attention. It was too stupid to expect them to report fairly and impartially. Entertainment reporters were best at taking things out of context and even fabricating news, and they were very willing to go to court. It was so disgusting that it could disgust you to death. *ring ring*, the phone on the desk rang again. Not only that, but two of Lu Shi's mobile phones rang at the same time. For a time, the general manager's office was constantly ringing, and it became extremely noisy. There was no doubt that those entertainment reporters must have called after getting the news. Lu Shi was probably annoyed. Seeing this, Lu Chen smiled and said, "Go on with your work. I'm going back to work. I haven't finished the script." After saying that, he hurriedly slipped away, leaving his sister in the office overwhelmed and battered. Returning to his office, Lu Chun asked his assistant to bring him a cup of coffee. Although the script of You from the Star had been completed, there were still many contents that needed to be revised and corrected. He quickly put the matter of the Golden Won Awards behind him. However, things were not that simple. Chapter 578. You from the Star is the third urban drama that Lu Chun is preparing to shoot this year, and it is also the last of his romantic trilogy. After shooting, he will fully turn to his own martial arts IP drama. The male and female protagonists of this TV series are still played by him and Chun Fei, which is a perfect stage achievement. It is precisely because of this that Lu Chun attaches more importance to this TV series than Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance. The budget is double that of Full House of Romance, mainly because of the increased investment in special effects. You from the Star has a certain science fiction color. The male protagonist is an alien with superpower and a long life. This special romantic drama is definitely very fresh in terms of genre. Lu Chun dug out You from the Star from the memory of the dream world and also wanted to create a ratings miracle again. But even with the memory wealth of a world, Lu Chun will never lie down and make money. When he was in Hong Kong, he began to write the script of You from the Star and made a lot of modifications on the basis of the original work, especially some bug settings and plots that made the audience criticize. Big, plentiful story and characters. The same approach, he has been successful with Full House of Romance, and You from the Star is certainly no exception and will do better. Lu Chun is preparing to shoot 30 episodes of this TV series, adding a new storyline, and increasing the number of characters in the play, which is loyal to the original work and more than the original work. It's just that in this way, Lu Chun's workload of writing the script has increased big, and he likes to master the whole story by himself, so he never hires a team to write for him like other big-name screenwriters. At this point, Lu Chun has no idea about money and fame. What he really pursues is a breakthrough in his career so that he can maintain a steady stream of forward momentum. Therefore, the script of You from the Star has been written for 2 months and has not been finalized yet. There are still many details that need to be perfected. However, there's an endless stream of people seeking cooperation, and they're about to break the threshold. Among them, the most active are Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television. The 2 satellite TV stations have tasted the sweetness of Full of Romance, and they have made a lot of money from advertising income. They are determined to win You from the Star. Of the nearly 30 satellite TV stations in the country, more than a dozen had contacted the original Lu Chun studio. The rest were not uninterested, but they knew that their strength was limited, so they did not participate in the competition. Apart from Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television, the most active and richest one is undoubtedly Shanghai Satellite TV. The price offered by Shanghai Satellite TV was higher than that of Zhejiang Satellite TV and Beijing Television. So far, Lu Chun has not officially finalized the partner of You from the Star. However, this did not affect the writing of the script. Thud, thud. A soft knock on the door woke Lu Chun up from his creative state. At this time, he realized that the sky outside the floor-to-ceiling window was getting dark. He didn't know when the lights in the room had been turned on. "You're still writing?" It was Lu Shi who knocked on the door. She exclaimed in surprise. "You've been sitting in front of the computer for 4 to 5 hours. So long?" Lu Chun saved the document, stood up, and moved his muscles and bones. Sure enough, he found that his hands and feet were a little sore after sitting for too long. Lu Shi smiled and said, "You must be hungry, right? Let's go to dinner. Someone will pay the bill tonight." "Ah." Lu Chun was curious. "Who is it?" Lu Shi blinked. "Guess." Lu Chun rubbed his nose and said with a wry smile, "How can I guess? Is Fei back?" After the establishment of Chun Fei Media as the lady boss, Chun Fei was busier than Lu Chun. A few days ago, she went to Huhai to shoot a commercial, and it was almost time for her to come back. As for the others, Lu Chun really couldn't think of them. It's not that he's bragging, but in the circle of Beijing, there are not thousands of people who want to invite him to dinner. It's not a problem to casually pick a few hundred, and they will not be unknown people. You only think of your wife. Lu Shi rolled her eyes and took the initiative to reveal the mystery. You don't need to guess blindly. The person who is treating is called Wan Jinping. Wan Jinping? Lu Chun couldn't help but frown. This name is a little familiar. Lu Shi reminded. He is the general manager of Hongwen Agency. Lu Chun's memory suddenly recovered, and he knew what kind of person Wan Jinping was. In Beijing's entertainment circle, Wan Jinping was really a character. His reputation in the media was not big, and could even be said to be very small. His name rarely appeared in entertainment gossip news, as if he was an inconspicuous small character. But people who know Wan Jinping, well, will not regard him as an ordinary person. The first time Lu Chun heard of Wan Jinping was when he was chatting with Sister Lee over dinner. At that time, Sister Lee mentioned that there was such a person who was slick and smart, had a wide network in the circle, and was very popular. Although Wang Jinping opened a management company, he was actually a high-level broker. He mainly acted as a middleman for investors and producers, and he was doing very well on both sides. For example, if a rich coal boss suddenly wanted to shoot a movie or TV series and wanted to use his mistress, but he did not know anything about the industry, then he found the right person to look for Wang Jinping. As long as he had money, Wang Jinping could quickly pull together a decent production team in Beijing, hire a second or third-rate director to direct, and spend 2 to 3 months to come up with a dozen episodes of TV series or movie, and then use his connections to broadcast it on television stations and cinemas. If necessary, he could also help hire a group of online promoters and media reporters to hype and promote, and a new celebrity in the entertainment circle would gradually rise. Wang Jinping's connections were very wild. Not only did he have private connections, but he also had connections with government agencies. He had connections with all sorts of people, but he was rarely exposed in the public eye. People who were not in the industry rarely knew of his existence. Such a shrewd person suddenly treating Lu Chun to a meal made him vigilant. "Do you know what's going on?" Lu Shi shook her head. "I just don't know, so I went to take a look. He said it was a good thing over the phone. His sister's lips curled into a mocking smile. A night owl would come to the house for no reason. Lu Chun was not afraid of Wang Jinping, but since Lu Shi had agreed, he also wanted to see what the other party was up to. "Then let's go." Lu Chun picked up the coat on the chair, put it on, and said with a smile, "It feels like we were going to a Hongmin banquet." His sister laughed. Chapter 579. No circle could be pure and flawless. Just as there was light and there was darkness, there was also a gray area between light and darkness. Wang Jinping was a person who wandered in the gray area. He played big, but kept a low profile. He had a high reputation in the circle and had a wide network of contacts accumulated over the years, so he couldn't be taken lightly. Wang Jinping also had a nickname in the circle, Jack of all trades. This nickname was very vivid. It was because of this that Lu Shi agreed to his invitation. Otherwise, she wouldn't need to pay attention to a broker. In this circle, it was okay to offend a gentleman, but offending a villain would cause a lot of trouble. The place where Wang Jinping invited the banquet was at Thousand Sakura Restaurant, which was a top Japanese restaurant in Beijing. The per capita consumption was at least 3,000 or 4,000, and many celebrities frequented it. When Lu Chun and Lu Shi arrived at Thousand Sakura Restaurant, Wang Jinping was already waiting there. Wang Jinping was about 40 years old. He was neither tall nor short and looked ordinary. His eyes and eyebrows were quite narrow. He was wearing a dark gray suit and looked like an old white-collar worker. "Mr. Lu Chun, I'm honored that you accepted my invitation." In the private room, Wang Jinping took the initiative to extend his hands to Lu Chun and said with a smile, "I'm Wang Jinping." Lu Chun shook hands with him and said with a smile, "Hello, CEO Wang." Wang Jinping exchanged a few more polite words with Lu Shi, even more respectful than Lu Chun. In terms of attitude, this entertainment industry broker was impeccable. He was not overly flattering, but gave people a warm feeling like a spring breeze, as if they were old friends who had not seen each other for a long time. The atmosphere was very comfortable. After sitting down, Wang Jinping first invited Lu Chun and Lu Shi to order, and then ordered a few more dishes. "Mr. Lu Chun, how about some sake?" Lu Chun smiled and said, "CEO Wang, you can have some if you like, but I'm afraid I can only drink 1 or 2 glasses." Wang Jinping understood. Drinking alcohol hurts the throat, but the alcohol content of sake isn't high, so we'll just drink a little. Singers did not drink or drank, less mainly to protect their voices, especially if they drank alcohol before singing. Their vocal cords would swell with blood. Singing at this time was especially harmful and might even cause permanent damage. However, it was fine to occasionally drink beer, yellow wine, red wine, and other low-alcohol drinks. Wang Jinping was an insider, so he naturally understood the logic behind it. He ordered a bottle of Kikizuna Masamyun, which did not have a high alcohol content. Thousand Sakura cuisine was very famous, and the price was also very expensive. As for whether it was worth the money, it was a matter of opinion. However, if one wanted to eat their fill here, it would not be an easy task. Liu Chan tasted a few sushi and felt that it was pretty good. While enjoying the Japanese food, Wang Jinping was also secretly observing Liu Chan. The first time he heard of Liu Chen's name was more than a year ago. At that time, Liu Chen had made a name for himself in the pop music world and showed outstanding creative talent. At that time, Wang Jinping had the idea of signing Liu Chen to his company. The main business of Wang Jinping's agency was to connect investors, but he also paid attention to discovering potential newcomers. After cultivating, packaging, and hyping them up, he would transfer them to others and earn quick money. Unfortunately, at that time, Liu Chen did not consider signing with any agency at all and directly opened his own studio. Wang Jinping, who had missed the opportunity, did not care. There were too many newcomers emerging in the circle every year, and there were many good-looking and talented people everywhere. There was no need to regret missing one. However, the speed of Liu Chen's rise in the circle was simply astonishing. His works not only swept the music world, but also crossed over to the film and television industry. The first TV series he wrote and acted in created a miracle in the ratings. Now, although Liu Chen could not be compared to the top big shots in terms of experience and foundation, there were really not many people who could compare to him in the limelight in the past 2 years. In the process, Wang Jinping had been an outsider until this time, when someone came to ask him to connect them. Young people nowadays are really amazing. Wang Jinping thought to himself as he quietly downed a cup of sake. After 3 rounds of drinking and eating until he was half full, Wang Jinping consulted Liu Chen and Liu Shi, then asked the waiter to remove the plates and replace them with oolong tea. It was time to get down to business. After being in the circle for so long, Wang Jinping's eloquence was undoubtedly strong, but he did not know why. In the face of his siblings in front of him, he was not very confident that he could persuade them. So after thinking for a moment, Wang Jinping decisively abandoned his original line of thought and asked tentatively, "Mr. Liu Chen, about the rumors about the Golden Luan Award nomination. Do you know about it?" Liu Chen and Liu Shi looked at each other, and Liu Chen nodded and said, "Yes, President Wang. Do you have any inside information?" As he said that, he could not help but laugh. Wang Jinping's heart sank because Liu Chen's reaction was completely beyond his expectations. In his opinion, an artist like Liu Chen who became famous at a young age was most likely a proud and arrogant person. Encountering such an obvious suppression, he would definitely be angry in his heart, or at least not comfortable. When he mentioned this matter now, Liu Chen could be angry, dissatisfied, indifferent, or deliberately not show his emotions. But this relaxed attitude made Wang Jinping feel that his confidence had taken another blow. Wang Jinping's eyes were very sharp. He could see that Liu Chen really did not care and was not pretending to be generous. When did the Golden Luan Award become so unattractive? In the circle, who knew how many actors and artists were racking their brains to get a nomination to raise their status? There were many who looked to Wang Jinping for public relations. The top bigwigs might not care, but Liu Chen, Wang Jinping's mind raced, and he said with a smile, "There's not much inside information, but as far as I know, the news on the internet may not be true. The official nomination hasn't come out yet, so everything can change." He was actually very obviously hinting at Liu Chen, but Liu Chen did not seem to understand, nor did he ask curiously. Wang Jinping cursed inwardly and could only continue speaking. "In my opinion, Full House of Romance is a very outstanding TV series, and it should do well at the Golden Luan Awards." After saying that, Wang Jinping stared closely at Liu Chen, trying to see something from the latter's eyes. However, Liu Chen's eyes were deep and indifferent, like an unseen pool of still water. There was not the slightest emotional fluctuation in his heart, as if Wang Jinping was talking about someone else's matter, and it had nothing to do with him. For the first time in his life, Wang Jinping, who was experienced, felt a sense of helplessness. Chapter 580. Wang Jinping had once seen Lu Chen's eyes in a real veteran actor. They were as deep as a black hole. They had seen through the vicissitudes of the world, seen through the world, and returned to simplicity. How could they appear in a young man's eyes? Under such a gaze, Wang Jinping felt that all his probing, calculations, and conspiracies were not presentable at all. If he said it, he would only be humiliating himself. There was nothing else he could do but lose face. For a moment, the shrewd broker of the entertainment industry was at a loss for words. Lu Chen suddenly smiled and said, "Thank you for your compliment, President Wang. You can say what you want to say." Wang Jinping suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. But the next moment, his old face couldn't help but turn red. Lu Chen had taken the initiative in the conversation. Ahem. Fortunately, Wang Jinping was thick-skinned enough. He quickly coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment and said, "Here's the thing. There's a very powerful and top domestic unit who wants to cooperate with you to shoot You from the Star. Of course, the conditions are very good." You from the Star? Lu Chen didn't feel strange. Recently, there were too many people eyeing his TV series. Several major satellite TV stations were competing very fiercely, and the conditions they offered were higher than the other. There were also many domestic film and television companies who wanted to get a piece of the pie. Lu Chen's first two TV series made a large number of unknown newcomers popular. It was not an exaggeration to say that his TV series were a star-making machine. Which artist with a little ambition didn't want to get involved? Wang Jinping was a broker of the entertainment industry. It was natural for him to be asked to talk about cooperation with Lu Chen. Lu Chen was curious about the unit mentioned by the other party. "Can you tell me which unit it is?" The word unit was a little interesting. Wang Jinping hesitated for a moment, but still revealed the mystery. Shonen TV. Shonen TV. This answer was really beyond the expectations of Lu Chen and Lu Shi, so much so that his sister couldn't help but widen her eyes. Shonen TV was Lu Chen's old enemy. The enmity between the two sides can even be traced back to when Lu Chen first entered the entertainment industry. He participated in Shonen TV's Super Singer and was brushed. He switched to Singing China and jumped through the Dragon Gate, which also made Shonen TV ridiculed for having eyes, but not seeing and having too many dark secrets. Later, there were even more competitions. For example, Lu Chen's Autumn in My Heart defeated the popular TV series of Shonen TV. Shonen TV also secretly made trouble for Lu Chen. However, ever since Full of Romance was broadcasted, the two sides had basically not met again. Shonen TV could not gain any advantage from Lu Chen, and it was impossible for them to publicly fall out with him. Did they still want to save face for the satellite TV station? As for Lu Chen, he would not take the initiative to provoke the other party. But he really didn't expect that Shonen TV had also taken a fancy to You from the Star and released a message of cooperation to him through Wang Jinping in a roundabout way. In fact, strictly speaking, there was no deep hatred between Lu Chen and Shonen TV. The several collisions were either caused by someone or by coincidence, far from being irreconcilable. There are no eternal friends or enemies in the world. There are eternal interests. For the perspective of interests, Lu Chen's choice to cooperate with Shonen TV is better than Beijing Television or Zhejiang Satellite TV. Because among so many satellite TV stations in China, Shonen TV is well-deserved number one. Its influence is bigger than that of its competitors, and it can't compete with CCTV. Cooperation with such a platform will undoubtedly have a great promotion effect on Lu Chen's career. For example, if he wants to promote a Chinese ghost story and promote it through Shonen TV, the effect will definitely be very good. The most important thing is that now Shonen TV has taken the initiative to find Lu Chen. Even though they are wearing a fig leaf, it is still very rare, because with Shonen TV's status in the circle, there are really not many star artists who can make them bow their heads. Lu Shi looked at Lu Chen with an inquiring look, and her sister was also shocked and hesitant. Wang Jinping felt that he had regained some initiative. He said with a smile, "Why don't I talk about the specific conditions first?" He thought to himself that the name of Shonen TV was really powerful. However, Lu Chun only hesitated for a moment, but did not answer his question. Instead, he asked, "Golden Phoenix Award?" Wang Jinping's smile instantly froze on his face. He knew that Lu Chun's question was a question. He was questioning whether Shonen TV was using the Golden Phoenix Award as a condition for the cooperation between the two parties. In other words, Lu Chun thought that the reason why Full of Romance did not get nominated for the Golden Phoenix Award was because Shonen TV was deliberately obstructing them, leaving some leeway to negotiate the conditions. Wang Jinping suddenly realized that Lu Chun is a very proud person, but his pride is hidden deep in his bones, and he will not easily show it. He gives people the impression that he is quite modest. But it is precisely such a person who will never be threatened. That's right, it's a threat. Lu Chun thought that Shonen TV is using the Golden Phoenix Award to threaten him. This is very bad. What's worse is that if Lu Chun had such a thought, it would not be too unjust. Shonen TV. The rumor on the internet is related to Shonen TV, or, to be more precise, it's related to someone in Shonen TV. Wang Jinping, who is as cunning as he is stuck again, because he knows very well that sophistry is useless against Lu Chun. This young man is far more shrewd than his peers. Lying will only put him in a more passive situation. To be honest, Wang Jinping has never been so tired when negotiating with the elites inside and outside of the entertainment industry. Lu Shi's gaze was cold as she looked at the embarrassed Wang Jinping. Lu Chun did not rely on others' help or support to get where he is today, but his own hard work and strength. Shonen TV actually wants to use a mere Golden Phoenix Award to pressure Lu Chun. What a joke. As a result, her impression of Wang Jinping is also very bad. After a while, Wang Jinping sighed and said, "Mr. Lu Chun, please don't misunderstand. My client sincerely wants to cooperate with you, and the conditions are guaranteed to be satisfactory." He still did not give up, thinking that he can persuade Lu Chun at the end. In short, he is not willing to give up just like this. Lu Chun picked up the teacup and took a sip, then suddenly smiled. "CEO Wang, let's not beat around the bush. I will not cooperate with Shonen TV. There is no need." As for the Golden Phoenix Award, his face showed a mocking expression. "Believe me, not being nominated is not a disgrace to me." At this moment, Lu Chun's strong confidence made Wang Jinping speechless. The frustration of failure shrouded this senior broker. Chapter 581. In the elegantly decorated private room, the fragrance of tea was lingering in the air, and the faint sound of the zither penetrated the wall as if it was from another world. Wang Jinping's mood was very bad. He had been in the entertainment circle for more than a decade and had seen all kinds of storms and waves. He didn't expect that he would be snubbed by a young man today. What made Wang Jinping feel most depressed was that from beginning to end, it was Lu Chun who had the right to speak, so that his words were useless. This meal was a waste. Wang Jinping could only admit his failure. He put away his depressed mood and said with a forced smile, "If that's the case, then it's really a pity." In fact, the conditions offered by Shonen TV to cooperate with Lu Chun were really very generous. As the overlord of the local satellite TV stations in China, Shonen TV's strong ratings and strong capital made them invincible in the entertainment circle. But there were always exceptions. Lu Chun didn't care about Shonen TV at all, and he didn't lack money and fame. As the saying goes, a cliff is 1,000 feet high without any desire. Wang Jinping's failure was really not his fault. But in his line of work, offending people for other people's business was the most stupid thing to do. Wang Jinping didn't have any opinion of Lu Chun because of this, and he wouldn't fall out with him. After adjusting his mood, Wang Jinping raised his teacup and said, "Mr. Lu Chun, Chief Lu, we can't do business, but we'll still be friends. I hope there will be opportunities for cooperation in the future." Lu Shi nodded and raised her cup. If it wasn't necessary, she didn't want to offend this jack of all trades. Not to mention that the other party's identity wasn't good or bad. Just like how bacteria must exist in the human body, the entertainment circle also couldn't lack such people. It was naturally the best to end this peacefully. Liu Chun didn't immediately raise his cup. He looked at Wang Jinping thoughtfully and said, "Chief Wang, actually, if you want to cooperate, you don't have to wait for the future." Wang Jinping was stunned. He put down his teacup and asked, "Mr. Liu Chun, what do you mean?" Liu Chun smiled and said, "You also know that I am preparing to shoot the third TV series, You from the Star. At present, the investors and partners of this TV series have not been finalized. I wonder if President Wang is interested in getting involved? Are you interested?" Yes. It was simply too much. Wang Jinping had never thought that Liu Chun would reject Shonen TV without hesitation. He didn't even want to listen to the conditions. Instead, he threw a sweet and tempting cake to Wang Jinping. He wanted to swallow it on the spot. Even if the cake was covered with poisonous fillings, he would eat it first. One was Autumn in My Heart, and the other was Full House of Romance. It could be said that 2 TV series in 2 years had put Liu Chun and Chun Ferrer on the altar. Even if many people in the circle said that they were not favored by the Yuan Awards and the Golden Luan Awards, no one could deny the success of the 2 TV series. In the beginning, those who cooperated with Liu Chun, whether it was an artist, a TV station, or a film company, all made a lot of money. Liu Chun's excellent quality of not eating alone made him have an excellent reputation in the circle. So when Liu Chun decided to shoot the 3rd TV series, You from the Star, there were many people who looked for Wang Jinping as a matchmaker. Of course, the most powerful one was Shonen TV. Wang Jinping knew very well that as long as You from the Star was not shot randomly, it was bound to be a hit. The possibility of the ratings being a flop was very small. Countless people in the circle were watching it with red eyes. He knew that he had no friendship with Liu Chun. Originally, he wanted to use the power of Shonen TV to build a relationship with Liu Chun. After being rejected, he gave up, but the result was so unexpected. Fortunately, Wang Jinping was very shrewd and did not lose his composure on the spot. However, his expression also changed. "Mr. Liu Chun, you're not joking with me, are you?" Liu Chun couldn't help laughing. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. He said unhurriedly, "I never joke when it comes to business. I can give you 5% of the limited equity shares. It doesn't matter whether you invest in your own company or pull strings for other companies. We can sign a formal contract." Wang Jinping, who had been a little hot-headed just now, quickly calmed down and weighed the pros and cons in his mind. If it had been someone else who said that he would be given 5% of the shares and limited equity investment, Wang Jinping would most likely have scoffed at it. Did Master Wang lack such little things? However, You from the Star was too tempting. Those who participated in the investment cooperation were bound to be big shots in the industry. To be honest, Liu Chun was really giving him face by giving him this opportunity. 5% of the limited equity shares seemed small, but in fact, it showed Liu Chun's sincerity because Wang Jinping believed that even Liu Chun himself could not keep too many shares. The most important thing was that with this name in hand, if it was done well, the benefits that Wang Jinping could bring to Wang Jinping would undoubtedly be extremely rich. For example, recommending a newcomer to the crew, even if it was not a very important role, as long as appropriate publicity was done, it would be too easy to make the newcomer popular. Wang Jinping was well aware of this. How many newcomers or semi-new artists in and out of the circle wanted to be popular? Thousands. Therefore, although he knew that this was most likely a bait thrown by Liu Chun, Wang Jinping still wanted to take the bait. He couldn't help but ask, "Mr. Liu Chun, then what do you want?" Liu Chun smiled and said, "I just want to make friends with Boss Wang and leave a favor. Maybe I will ask Boss Wang for help in the future." More friends meant more paths, and friends could also be divided into many kinds. Wang Jinping's expression changed. After a while, he sighed and said, "I feel like I'm getting old." He knew that he couldn't resist this temptation, but thinking that he might offend Shonen TV because of this, his heart was extremely tangled, and he felt like pulling chestnuts out of the fire. Liu Chun smiled and said nothing. This was an open and above-board plot. Whether Wang Jinping agreed or not, there was no loss for him. For the TV series You from the Star, Liu Chun was only going to retain 40% to 50% of the shares for Qinfei Media, and the rest would be given to various partners. A mere 5% of the limited equity shares for Wang Jinping was nothing at all. If Wang Jinping was smart enough, he would not do it himself. It was the best choice to help others. He still had to accept Liu Chen's favor, and the initiative was always firmly in the hands of Liu Chun. After hesitating again and again, Wang Jinping finally gritted his teeth and said, "Thank you, Mr. Liu Chun." Such an opportunity was also rare for him. If he missed it, he would really miss it. Liu Chun nodded and said, "Well, you can contact Boss Liu for the details." Since he had made a decision, Wang Jinping no longer hesitated. He picked up his teacup again and said, "Happy cooperation." Liu Chun and Liu Shi looked at each other and smiled, also picking up their teacups. Happy cooperation. Chapter 582. Back in the car, Liu Shi stared at Liu Chun. At first, Liu Chun didn't notice it, but soon he was scared by his sister's strange eyes. "What's wrong?" Liu Shi stretched out her finger and pointed at his forehead, saying, "I'm wondering if you are my younger brother." Liu Chun broke into a sweat. "If I'm not your younger brother, who else can I be?" Liu Shi said very seriously, "Your body is a shell, but I suspect that there's a 1,000-year-old ghost hidden inside." Liu Chun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sister, when did you start reading online novels?" Liu Shi said, "You have given me too many surprises in the past 2 years. I can't believe everything now." She felt it from the bottom of her heart. In the past 2 years, Liu Chun rose rapidly in the entertainment circle like a comet, lighting up the sky that belonged to him. From pop music to film and television, the amazing talent he showed not only stunned people inside and outside the circle, but also made his sister, who was the most familiar with him, feel incredible. And tonight, in the competition between Liu Chun and Wang Jinping, he played this old fox in the palm of his hand. He paid a small price to win over a powerful ally, which really opened Liu Shi's eyes. If it were her, she would never have performed better. It was just that this was not the playful and willful younger brother she was familiar with. Liu Shi also knew that Liu Chun had changed a lot in the past 2 years. Maybe he had really matured after experiencing hardships, but she always had a feeling that she was still in a dream. Sometimes she was afraid that after waking up from the dream, everything would no longer exist, and everything would be the same as before. Liu Chun held his sister's hand and said, "I am still the same person. I have never changed." It was just that in his mind, there was an additional memory of the world. Liu Shi felt Liu Chen's sincerity. She smiled, and the atmosphere in the car became very warm. Time passed quickly, and so did their footsteps. The sister and brother hadn't had a heart-to-heart talk for a long time. Ding-ling-ling, unfortunately, the phone suddenly rang and broke the tacit warmth. Liu Shi took out her phone from her bag and answered, "Hello. Yes, I've already eaten. I'm going home with Liu Chun." It's quite late now." "Then all right then." After saying a few words, she hung up the phone. Liu Chun asked curiously, "Who was that?" Liu Shi hesitated for a moment and replied, "It's Mu Shi. She asked me to do yoga and spa in the evening." Liu Chun suddenly had a bad feeling. "Sis, does Li Mushi often ask you out?" "You know she..." Liu Shi blushed and said, "I know, but she doesn't have that kind of feeling for me. We're very good friends now. I don't have any friends in the capital, so..." Liu Chun was speechless. Although they were brother and sister, he couldn't interfere in his sister's private life. "Then you should pay attention to yourself." Liu Shi glared at him and said, "Pay attention to what? Mu Shi is not a tiger. Can she eat me?" "Brother Zhang, you can just drop me off at the intersection ahead." Zhang Xiaofeng, who was a part-time driver, agreed and turned the steering wheel to pull over. Liu Shi patted Liu Chun on the shoulder and said, "Don't think about it. I'll get off here. It's very close to the clubhouse. You should rest early. Let's talk about it tomorrow." What else could Liu Chun say? He could only agree with a wry smile. He really wanted to call him mushy and warn her not to have any thoughts about Lu Shi, but he didn't know how to say it. He could only be confused. When he returned home, Lu Chun was still very depressed. However, his depression only lasted until he opened the door and disappeared in an instant. "When did you come back?" The pretty girl standing behind the door. Who else could it be but Chun Fei? During this time, Chun Fei was not in the capital. Her daily schedule was full. Today she was in Shanghai, and tomorrow she might fly to the deep sea. This was the result of rejecting many notices and advertisements. Relying on the two popular TV series, Autumn in My Heart and Full of Romance, Chun Fei was definitely one of the most expensive female stars in the entertainment industry. Few could match her popularity. Although she was in love with Lu Chun, and the money she had earned could not be spent in several lifetimes, she had never considered staying at home and being a little woman in love. For her, her career was the most important source of youth and vitality. In this respect alone, Chun Fei worked harder than Lu Chun. Perhaps it was because of this that she felt a little sorry for Lu Chun and wanted to find an opportunity to make up for it. Chun Fei threw herself into his arms and said with a sweet smile, "I just came back. I have a little surprise for you." Before she could finish her words, Lu Chun's mouth covered hers. The two had known and loved each other for a long time. Usually, they did not spend much time together, but their feelings for each other did not weaken because of this. Instead, as time passed, their feelings became stronger. With a beautiful woman in his arms, Lu Chun immediately put his sister's matter to the back of his mind and fell into an intoxicated gentleness. It was a charming night. 2 days later, on the evening of March 19th, the Golden Lawn Awards Committee announced the nominations for all 39 categories of the 2017 Golden Lawn Awards on its official website. Among them, the 2016 TV ratings champion, Full of Romance, was nominated for Best Screenplay, Best Music, and Best Editing. It did not win any heavyweight awards such as Best Director, Best Actor or Actress, Most Popular Actor or Actress, etc. This was different from the news that was circulating on the internet a few days ago. Full of Romance did not win anything at the Golden Lawn Awards. Lu Chun did not feel that it was strange because, as he said to Wang Jinping, if Full of Romance really did not win a single nomination, he would definitely not be the one who would be embarrassed. The 3 small and medium awards were the Golden Lawn Awards Committee's fig leaf. "I think we will win an award, and it will most likely be Best Music," Lu Chun said to Lu Shi and Chun Fei. "So, just send a representative. I think Chen Xian will do." Chen Xian was Lu Chun's former colleague who worked at KFC. Now, she was the assistant to the general manager of Chun Fei Media. Lu Shi hesitated. "Isn't that a bad idea? That would be too disrespectful to the Golden Lawn Awards." Lu Chun smiled and said, "Then send 2 more representatives. 3 nominations for 3 people. That's just right." The other party had already thrown a slap at him, and he still had to put his face forward? If he offended them, so be it. Lu Chun did not rely on the awards to make a living, and he knew very well who was making things difficult for him. The serious thing was that a Chinese ghost story was about to be released in the country, and the promotion had just reached the most important stage. How could he still have the mood to fight with others? If there are any interviews, reject them all. No comment. Chapter 583. In the 27th Golden Lawn Awards, out of the 39 nominations, the biggest winner was the long-running TV series Great Song Dynasty. This 85-episode historical drama had been broadcasted on CCTV last year. Its ratings were quite good, and the Golden Lawn Awards liked it. As a result, it received 12 nominations, including Best Director, Best Long Drama, Best Actor, Best Screenplay, after Great Song Dynasty was Battle in the Sand City. It was a 37-episode military drama produced by Shonen TV and the United Nations. It received a total of 9 nominations. In comparison, Full House of Romance's 3 nominations for Best Screenplay, Best Music, and Best Editing were pitifully weak. Be it Great Song Dynasty or Battle in the Sand City, Their ratings and influence could not be compared to Full House of Romance. It was just that both dramas were shrouded in the light of main themes. This was a little ridiculous. The Golden Lawn Awards was different from the Yulon Awards. The latter was a legitimate government award, judged by expert judges. It was normal to promote the main themes. The Golden Lawn Awards, on the other hand, was voted on by the audience. In the end, the nominees were not the ones that the audience liked the most. That made people want to complain. As a result, when the nominations were announced, the official blog of the Golden Lawn Awards, Waves, was instantly swallowed up by the flood of people. Most of them were angry for Full House of Romance. Please explain the criteria for the nominations. Why did Full House of Romance only get a few small nominations? Just change the name of the Golden Lawn Awards to the Blackbird Awards. They're all black. Are you guys kidding me? My great Liu Chun can't even get a nomination for Most Popular Actor? Hee hee. Do you guys know what the ratings for Full House of Romance were last year? Let me give you a friendly reminder. Full House of Romance won the ratings in Korea, boycott the Bullsh *T Awards. What people complained about the most was that Full House of Romance had no Most Popular Actor or Actress. It was fine if they didn't get any nominations for Best Director and Best Lawn Drama. These two awards should be decided by the audience. Yet, Liu Chun and Chun Fei couldn't even get a nomination. It was an insult to everyone's intelligence. The judges of the Golden Lawn Awards knew very well that once they nominated Full of Romance, there would be no suspense at all unless they cheated during the vote counting process. So, they might as well just erase it. There were many intelligent netizens, and they could easily see through the Golden Lawn Awards judging committee's intentions. For a moment, the blog was flooded with scolding, and public opinion was turbulent. However, hoping that online public opinion could influence the Golden Lawn Awards judging committee would be a big mistake. Since they dared to bring out this nomination, they weren't afraid of being scolded at all. The Golden Lawn Awards have been scolded for many years. The official V's face was bulletproof. No matter how much saliva and bricks flew in the comment section, it remained unmoved. Then, it quickly deleted a large number of posts and banned them. In the end, it simply closed the comment section. This kind of roguish performance of a dead pig, not afraid of boiling water, made angry netizens helpless. Many fans of Liu Chun and Chun Fei could only flock to their blogs to pour out their dissatisfaction and express their support for their idols. Many fans thought that Liu Chun and Chun Fei would feel a sense of loss. After all, the biennial Golden Lawn Awards was still very influential in the domestic television industry. The honor of being a TV Empress and TV Empress was quite tempting. However, they didn't know that whether it was Liu Chun or Chun Fei, they had long-lost interest in the Golden Lawn Awards. The two had no intention of getting involved in this war of words. They didn't express their stance at all, and they even refused to be interviewed by the media. At present, the focus of Chun Fei Media's work was the domestic promotion of the movie A Chinese Ghost Story and the preparation of the TV series You from the Star. They didn't have the time or energy to meddle in the muddy waters of the Golden Lawn Awards. For the two of them, it didn't matter whether Full House of Romance was nominated or won an award. In any case, whoever wanted to play could play. On March 20th, the sci-fi blockbuster Showdown on Vulcan, which was shot by Superstar Pictures with a U.S. $170 million investment, was released in all three major cinemas in China at the same time. The number of screenings was 38, 76%, and the box office was $127 million. Nowadays, the domestic film market was extremely popular. Since 2010, as many as 30 to 40 movies had a box office of more than 100 million on the first day. Among them, Hollywood blockbusters firmly occupied half of the market. The results were extremely impressive. Movies that were popular in North America often had a high box office in China. After years of painstaking management of the domestic market, Hollywood had long accumulated a wealth of experience on how to promote in China. They were very clear about what to rely on to impress the domestic film audience. Most importantly, Hollywood's big film companies had a very close relationship with the three major cinemas in China. Therefore, whenever a blockbuster was introduced, it would receive a very high number of screenings, which pushed up the box office. Therefore, it was normal for Showdown on Vulcan to earn a box office of 127 million on the first day. In the next half month, it would also form a strong pressure on other movies that were released at the same time. On April 9th, another Hollywood blockbuster, Legend of the Holy Land, would be released in China. This could not help but make people sweat for the domestic films that were released during this period. Although the box office of domestic films was not bad at the moment, relying on youth idol films and popular IP blockbusters to defend their territory, the situation was definitely not optimistic if they were attacked by two powerful Hollywood blockbusters at the same time. Lu Chen's A Chinese Ghost Story was stuck in the middle. Although the timing could not be said to be too bad, it still made the industry worried. The voices of pessimism were endless, and it was generally believed that it was impossible to replicate the success in Xinjiang. When A Chinese Ghost Story was released in Xinjiang, its main competitor was The Painted Skin. It had not collided with Hollywood blockbusters, and there was a natural disadvantage in terms of investment and publicity. It was worth mentioning that The Painted Skin had already been released on March 14th. In the week of the 20th, it only earned 32 million yuan at the box office. On the 20th, it fell to 2 million yuan. It was very likely that it would repeat the same mistakes in Xinjiang, and it was very likely that it would be canceled in advance. The Painted Skin was a Sino-Hong Kong co-production, and it could enjoy the support policy of Xinjiang's new films. There was a basic guarantee of screenings in cinemas, but it was only limited to the first week. Cinemas were very realistic. The seats in cinemas were such precious resources that they would definitely not leave them for those films that were not popular with the audience. The winner takes all was the rule here. The Painted Skin was obviously not the winner. In fact, this movie had already worked very hard in the domestic publicity. Huaguan Pictures was also a big company in the industry, but the reputation of this movie was too bad. It barely passed the score on several movie websites. Therefore, when measuring the opponents, Chunfei Media did not include The Painted Skin at all. The Showdown on Vulcan and Legend of the Holy Land were the real opponents. Chapter 584. On March 21st, the box office of the decisive Battle of Vulcan exceeded 200 million in 2 days. According to this trend, the total box office of this Hollywood blockbuster was basically no problem to exceed 1 billion, and it was normal to reach 2 billion or 300 million, but it would be quite difficult to go higher, such as 5 billion. After 2 days of screening, the reputation of the decisive Battle of Vulcan on the internet showed a two-tier trend. Those who liked the film thought that the special effects of the film were excellent, the plot was exciting, and the climax was continuous from the beginning to the end, which was completely worth the price of the ticket. The evaluation of the audience who didn't like the decisive Battle of Vulcan was a typical popcorn Hollywood blockbuster. Except for the special effects and battle scenes, everything else was not worth mentioning. The story was full of loopholes, and it was nothing more than giving people a strong feeling of excitement. Everyone had seen many similar blockbusters, and there was not much novelty. Not to mention those positive comments, these negative comments alone actually reflected a problem faced by Hollywood movies in China, that is, the serious situation of homogenization of imported blockbusters. They were too focused on special effects and ignored the plot and characterization. It was like a delicious dish served to the audience, sprinkled with MSG. Young people were relatively more fond of it, and they were also the main audience of such Hollywood blockbusters. Of course, there was no shortage of real high-quality works in Hollywood movies, but it was difficult for that kind of artistic film to be introduced into China, and the box office after it was introduced was often very poor, and it was not liked by cinemas. It was precisely because of this, coupled with the state's protection policy for domestic films, that Hollywood blockbusters had a huge impact on the domestic film market, and domestic films could also occupy a place in the past decade. However, The youth idol films and popular IP movies that domestic relied on as the main market were also facing a serious problem of homogenization, which made the domestic film market more and more popular, and the future was also uncertain. Liu Chun led Chunfei Media and wanted to seize territory in this huge market. Strength, connections, luck, and opportunities were indispensable. As a newcomer to the film industry, he was not favored by many people in the industry. At 8 o'clock on March 26th, one of the largest portals in China, the variety entertainment program, Weekly Movie Talk, of EasyNet Video was broadcast on time, which involved Liu Chun and a Chinese ghost story. With the further opening of the domestic film market, the number of Hollywood blockbusters entering the domestic market will continue to increase. The Domestic Film Protection Month will eventually be canceled. In recent years, Japanese and Korean movies have suddenly emerged as a new force. Many excellent works have been introduced into the country, forming an encirclement around domestic movies. Therefore, the situation is very grim, and there is a possibility that the market share will be further reduced. The guest sitting in the live broadcast room said with fervor and assurance, "Therefore, if domestic films want to break out of the tight encirclement, the key lies in the film production institutions. Domestic film companies need to become bigger and stronger. In terms of technology, they need to catch up with the international mainstream. In terms of content, they need to fit the domestic market and invest more funds in development." The online variety show Weekly Movie Talk was one of the famous programs of EasyNet Video. It aired once a week, and each episode would invite a well-known figure in the film industry, such as a director, actor, producer, screenwriter, film critic, etc., to comment on the movie that was released that week and predict the new movie that would be released next week. The number of views on this program is very high. This issue of Weekly Movie Talk invited the well-known columnist and film critic Wang Xiaoxiu. It was not Wang Xiaoxiu's first time on this program, and he was very familiar with the host. In addition, online programs had a lot more freedom than TV programs, so he was very open with his words and did not have too many scruples. This week, Showdown of Vulcan has already won $500 million in the box office. It is inevitable that it will exceed $1 billion. From this, we should see that the successful Hollywood film companies are basically giants. There are very few small and medium-sized film companies. In contrast, our domestic film production units are many but scattered. It seems that the scale is considerable, but in fact, the strength of the individual is not strong enough, so it is naturally difficult for them to defeat their opponents. The host nodded in agreement and said, "What you said is very reasonable, and next week, there will be 2 new domestic films that will be released. One is Our Youth is Not Lonely, and the other is a Chinese ghost story." While the host was introducing, the trailers of the 2 movies appeared on the big screen behind him. "Teacher Wang, what do you think of these 2 new domestic films?" Wang Xiaoxiu turned his gaze away from the screen and said, "I have seen the trailers of these 2 new films. Needless to say, Our Youth is Not Lonely is still a youth idol film. From the trailer, there are not many new tricks. There should be a box office. After all, this film market has always been there. As for the movie A Chinese Ghost Story," he shook his head. The host was sensitive. "You don't think it's good?" Wang Xiaoxiu smiled and said, "I don't think it's good. The reason is very simple. A Chinese Ghost Story is a fantasy ghost film adapted from the story of Strange Tales from a Chinese studio, and Painted Skin of the same genre has already been released on the 14th. The box office has only been around 40 million so far. Whether it's the cast or the investment, Painted Skin is bigger than A Chinese Ghost Story, and there are more special effects scenes. In the end, it can't even recover its cost, which means that the audience doesn't like this kind of film. Coupled with the high screening rate of Decisive Battle of Vulcan, A Chinese Ghost Story will not perform better than Painted Skin. The host had a different opinion. "Teacher Wang, as far as I know, A Chinese Ghost Story has a box office of over 100 million in Hong Kong. Its reputation and box office are better than Painted Skin." Wang Xiaoxiu disagreed. The situation in Hong Kong is very different from that in China. The audience there prefers ghost films, And when A Chinese Ghost Story was released, there were no Hollywood blockbusters at the same time. And after a pause, he said, and the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story is over 100 million. It is said that the peripheral products have been sold for tens of millions. To be honest, I don't believe this. Wang Xiaoshu's doubts about the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong, although he did not say it out loud. Anyone could tell from the expression on his face. Probably feeling that this topic was too sensitive, the host quickly changed the topic. Teacher Wang, what do you think of the recent appearance of the film market? The morning after the weekly movie talk was broadcast online, Lu Chen only watched it once in his office. Originally, Lu Chen did not know about this show, but his fans and the show's guest, Wang Xiaoshu, started fighting on the Waves blog, causing a lot of noise. Chapter 585. Weekly Movie Talk was one of the famous programs of EasyNet Video. Every week, it would appear on the homepage, so the number of views was quite high. The number of views on the same day was as many as tens of millions, and it had a fixed group of netizens. Therefore, when the episode of Weekly Movie Talk was broadcast on March 26th, it was quickly forwarded to blogs and forums, causing Lu Chen's fans to explode. Recently, because of the Golden Phoenix Award nomination, Lu Chen's fan group, with Liu Jiajun as the core, was quite unhappy. Many people felt injustice for their idol, but they could not find an outlet to vent. Now, they saw Wang Xiaoshu belittling A Chinese Ghost Story in the program, and even hinted that the Hong Kong box office of A Chinese Ghost Story was falsified. How could everyone tolerate this? The anger that they had been holding back immediately turned into cannon fire, blasting towards Wang Xiaoshu. The main battlefield was naturally on the blog of Waves. Countless fans attacked Wang Xiaoshu's remarks in the comment section. Just by looking at the trailer, you came to the conclusion that A Chinese Ghost Story is not good. Isn't it too easy to be a film critic? Don't speak without thinking if you don't understand. Why don't you believe that A Chinese Ghost Story has a box office of more than 100 million in Hong Kong? Please don't represent the audience. Do you think we don't like ghost movies just because we don't like them? Bullsh asterisk T film critics. They only know how to talk nonsense. I'm sorry, I've seen A Chinese Ghost Story in Hong Kong. The box office is that good. Speak without evidence. Be careful that Lu Chen will sue you for slander. A Chinese Ghost Story is 10 streets ahead of Painted Skin. The domestic box office will definitely not be bad. Be careful that you get slapped in the face. The main focus of the fans' bombardment was Wang Xiaoshu's doubts about the Hong Kong box office of A Chinese Ghost Story, especially the sales results of the peripheral products of A Chinese Ghost Story. He did not believe it all, so he obviously showed a disdainful and mocking attitude in the program. To be honest, apart from the box office, it was not unreasonable for Wang Xiaoshu to doubt the sales performance of the peripheral products of A Chinese Ghost Story, because this market was basically firmly controlled by Hollywood movies. In China, of course, including the practitioners in Hong Kong, it was not that they didn't know how rich the benefits of movie peripheral products were, but there were some things that they couldn't learn even if they wanted to. It was not that no one had tried to develop this market, but the result was often that they were badly injured. After suffering too many losses, the people in the industry lost confidence. Even if it was a movie with a box office of more than 1 billion yuan, they had no intention of investing in the peripherals. They would be satisfied with a share of the box office. At most, they would release some posters and albums. Based on Wang Xiaoshu's understanding of the domestic and Hong Kong film market, he did not believe that Lu Chen would spend money on peripheral products in advance, unless he had the ability to predict the future and knew that his movie would be a hit. The production of many peripheral products needed to be prepared for a long time in advance. Many things involved design, mold opening, processing, packaging, and many other processes. Therefore, it was inconceivable to advertise that A Chinese Ghost Story had sold more than 40 million yuan of peripherals in Hong Kong. How much did they have to prepare in advance? Wang Xiaoshu analyzed it according to common sense and concluded that the sales data were fake, but he did not know where Lu Chen's confidence came from. This columnist and film critic had always been known for his sharp writing and straightforward speech. In the face of the bombardment of thousands of Lu Chun fans, he would not close the comments like the Golden Wand Awards official blog and be a coward. Instead, he fought back, unwilling to be outdone. Wang Xiaoxiu updated his blog as soon as possible, using thousands of words to respond to the voices of doubt and replying to and refuting the comments of many netizens. His words were quite fierce. In the new blog post, he listed a lot of data and examples to prove that a Chinese ghost story would not have much of a market in China. In the face of the attack of two Hollywood blockbusters, it would inevitably do nothing. At most, it would earn a few fans New Year's money, and the sales of peripheral products would be a joke. Wang Xiaoxiu said sarcastically. A Chinese ghost story was chosen to be released at this time. Other than proving that Lu Chun had been blinded by his previous success, he was basically digging his own grave. Reality would teach Lu Chun a harsh lesson. As for Lu Chun's fans, Wang Xiaoxiu was even more impolite. He directly denounced them as Internet Water Army and Internet Mob. Wang Xiaoxiu's tough attitude, coupled with his sarcastic response, made the battle that broke out on the blog even more intense. More and more Lu Chun fans joined in, and it even affected Lu Chun to a certain extent. One had to know that Wang Xiaoxiu was considered half a person in the industry. He had his own friends and connections in the entertainment and literary circles. In the face of so many people besieging him, there would definitely be people who would stand up for him. Many well-known bloggers had expressed their support for Wang Xiaoxiu in their own blogs, either vaguely or clearly. They believed that his judgment of a Chinese ghost story was not wrong, and even hinted that someone was using it to hype up the movie. This online war of words really made the keyword "a Chinese ghost story" appear on the homepage of Waves' blog. In such a situation, Lu Chun, who had been shot, could not remain indifferent. All along, Lu Chun had attached great importance to his fan group. A large part of the work of Lu Chun's studio was to manage his fans. Fans made a star, and an artist without fans was nothing. However, sometimes fans would also cause trouble for a star. For example, this blog battle. In the eyes of outsiders, it seemed that Lu Chun had something to do with it. Of course, Lu Chun could say nothing or say a few words casually, but this would inevitably hurt the hearts of those fans who supported him enthusiastically. Many fans were very sensitive and fragile. Therefore, after careful consideration, and at the same time consulting the company's media and public relations department, Lu Chun posted a new blog post on his personal blog at 8 p.m. on the 28th. In this blog post, he first thanked his fans for their support and also thanked everyone for their love for the Chinese ghost story. At the same time, he hoped that everyone would treat those unfavorable comments rationally and not use profanity to scold people on the internet. This was because everyone had the freedom to express their thoughts, but this freedom should not be unlimited. Looking back at the past 6 months, Lu Chun was very proud because he had written, directed, and acted in his first personal movie and had won very good results and a good reputation in Hong Kong. Now that a Chinese ghost story was about to be released in China, it would meet a large number of fans. Although he was facing the strong pressure of 2 Hollywood blockbusters, he was confident that he could achieve the goal he had set for a Chinese ghost story. That was to break 500 million yuan in the domestic box office and sell more than 100 million yuan of peripheral products. Chapter 586. The publicity work for a Chinese ghost story, which would be released on April 2nd, had already begun. The budget of 30 million was not too much, but it was enough to ensure that most of the audience in the country knew that the movie was going to be released. However, compared to the 2 Hollywood blockbusters, The Final Battle of Vulcan and Legend of the Holy Land, a Chinese ghost story was undoubtedly in a weak position. Xinfei Media also had no intention of provoking a huge publicity war and was more or less keeping a low profile. Therefore, when Lu Chun shouted on his blog that the domestic box office will exceed 500 million and the sales of peripheral products exceed 100 million, it inevitably caused a lot of repercussions in the industry. In the past decade, the box office of domestically produced films had also increased significantly with the popularity of the domestic film market. Among them, there were many popular films that had invested tens of millions of yuan and had a box office of hundreds of millions of yuan. However, these were basically youth idol films. Most of them were adapted from best-selling novels or online novels. The investment for a Chinese ghost story was only tens of millions of yuan. The target of 500 million yuan domestic box office did not seem high, but the actual situation was not like that at all. That was because there were fewer and fewer films with low cost and high box office. Even youth idol films were a little difficult to play, let alone ghost films. If a Chinese ghost story had invested hundreds of millions or even 200 to 300 million yuan, it might have been able to attract a lot of audience members with the influence of the original work. However, a mere 30 million yuan investment, even if it was all spent on special effects, how many minutes of content could it produce? Without exciting special effects, how could a Chinese ghost story attract domestic film audiences? The appreciation of domestic audiences was very different from that of Hong Kong audiences. Ghost films were definitely a niche film. Wang Xiaoxu's analysis of a Chinese ghost story was very reasonable. What exactly made Lu Chun so confident? It was one thing to have a box office of 500 million yuan, but he actually shouted the slogan of more than 100 million yuan for the peripheral products. It was really shocking. Many people in the industry felt that Lu Chun was really a little too arrogant. Perhaps his development had been too smooth in the past 2 years, so he believed too much in his own influence. He had forgotten that movies were different from television and pop music. If Lu Chun were to make a youth idol film, he would not have to worry about the box office. This kind of fantasy film was not something that a newcomer could easily handle. However, there were also a few people in the industry who supported Lu Chun. They had seen the original version of a Chinese ghost story and had a positive and admiring attitude towards the movie. They said a few good things about Lu Chun on their blogs. However, such voices were very weak, and the general public was not optimistic about it. In Lu Chun's blog post, although Wang Xiaoxu's name was not mentioned at all, the film critic still took it as a provocation to himself and quickly posted a new blog post. The content of the blog post was very simple. There were only 4 words: wait and see. Wang Xiaoxu was a mature scholar. He had his own insistence and stubbornness. When he was serious, he was also very sharp. However, he would not play silly games with others, such as making a bet with Lu Chun that he would eat a keyboard or run around naked. The words wait and see were enough to show his attitude. Lu Chun's fans were naturally very supportive of Lu Chun's blog post. Don't say anything else. I will contribute at least 5 movie tickets. The peripheral products will depend on the situation. A box office of more than 500 million is too conservative. I think it can break 800 million. 1 billion. Support me, Chun. I will take my girlfriend to watch a Chinese ghost story. The box office and reputation in Xinjiang are so good. I don't believe that it will fail in China. It will definitely work. Big Lu Chun, can you tell me what kind of peripheral products there are? I'm curious too. Needless to say, Lu Chun really responded to the questions raised by his fans about the peripheral products. He updated his blog again the next night and released dozens of photos. These photos were all related to the peripheral products of a Chinese ghost story, including the doll figurines that were the most popular in Xinjiang. However, they were not artistic close-up photos, but finished stock photos. That's right. What Lu Chun posted on his blog were finished stock photos of various peripheral products. In addition to the various versions of the main characters in the film, there were also soundtracks, movie novels, commemorative albums, accessories, and so on. There was a dazzling lineup of everything. The key was that in a large warehouse, the stock was full. The stock of these peripheral products was ordered by the factory when Lu Chun was still in Xinjiang. He mainly focused on the domestic market, and the quantity had more than doubled. At present, the goods had basically arrived and were shipped to the capital. The purchasing power of the audience in Xinjiang was relatively strong, and the number of domestic audiences was large. Under the overall balance, Lu Chun set a sales target of 100 million for a Chinese ghost story. This goal should be said to be very ambitious, because many peripheral products of Hollywood blockbusters did not sell well in China, let alone domestic films. However, the success in Xinjiang gave Lu Chun enough confidence. On the one hand, these stock photos were to prove his confidence, and, on the other hand, it was also a powerful counterattack to Wang Xiaoshu's questioning remarks. If he did not have the confidence to recover the cost, would he produce so many products? In fact, in his previous blog, Lu Chun had already posted a few photos of the peripheral products, but that kind of artistic photos obviously could not be compared with this kind of show-off stock photos, and it immediately caused a lot of shock among his fans. Wow, there are so many. Can you give me one? The puppet figurines are so cute. I must buy a set when the time comes. Where are the local tycoons? Give a big exclusive sale to the group members. Bye. Finally, Lu Chun said in his blog that these peripheral products had begun to be shipped to the surrounding stores of the major cinemas. By April 2nd, they would definitely be on the counter, and he hoped that everyone would support them. Of course, the fans had to support him. Lu Chun's confidence also came from the group of loyal and cute fans he had. He could get millions of tips for a live broadcast, so how could he not sell the peripheral products for more than 100 million? In the face of Lu Chun's counterattack, Wang Xiaoshu was silent. Perhaps he was shocked by Lu Chun's generosity, or perhaps he was waiting and see. In short, he did not compete with Lu Chun's fans anymore. Everyone's attention was quickly diverted. The publicity for a Chinese ghost story was still in full swing. Lu Chun even broke the previous practice, ran a number of announcements, and appeared on several shows in a row to promote the film. Not only Lu Chun, but Chun Fei also spared no effort to use his own connections and influence to promote a Chinese ghost story. The entire Chun Fei media was in a state of fanatical work. Everything was just for the arrival of April 2nd. Chapter 587. Brothers, I'll be leaving in half an hour. Chi Haoyun's fingers flew as he tapped on the keyboard and said in the QQ group, "Let's meet at the cinema." As soon as his message was sent, a large number of responses immediately emerged in the group. "I'm already on the way. Haha. I'm also in a taxi, but Huainan Road is very congested now. The road is very difficult to walk on. I'm taking my girlfriend to watch a Chinese ghost story tonight. Are you jealous? What's there to be jealous about? I'll take two. What the hell, you guys are beasts. I haven't even eaten yet, and you're all going out? I'm also ready to leave. I can finally see Brother Hausie." Then you have to be prepared to vomit. Although he was ridiculed by the group members, Chi Hao was not angry at all. He laughed and said, "Get lost." Chi Hao is a member of Jinling, Lu Chen's fan club. Because of his online name, his seniority, and easygoing temperament, everyone affectionately calls him Brother Hausie. Chi Hao is one of Lu Chen's earliest fans. When Lu Chen opened the live broadcast of Starlight Show, he was one of the audience and rewarded Lu Chen with a lot of stars. Later, when Lu Chen fell out with Starlight Show, Chi Hao followed him to Whale TV. He likes Lu Chen's music very much and can be said to be a hardcore fan of Lu Chen. The most important thing is that Chi Hao once studied music and can be regarded as half a professional. He often comments on Lu Chen's songs in forums, Tieba, and QQ groups. His analysis is reasonable and interesting. Because he also has a lot of fans, he has a high prestige in the fan club. Although Chi Hao did not hold any position in Jinling Lu Chen's fan club, his appeal in the fan club of 5,000 people is very strong. Tonight's movie booking activity was initiated by him and received strong support from the group members. A few days ago, Chi Hao had made a suggestion in the group. Everyone should pool their funds and book a large theater to watch a Chinese ghost story on the day of its premiere as a form of support for Lu Chen. As soon as he made this suggestion, the group members responded like a tide, expressing that there were countless people who wanted to participate. Moreover, the fundraising was completed in a very short period of time. Then, Chi Hao contacted a large local cinema and booked a hall that could accommodate 700 people. But even so, there were still many group members who did not make it in time, or even if they made it in time, they could not get a place. Many of the group members had prepared 2 copies at that time, and they had brought their boyfriends or girlfriends to watch it together. Thus, the quota was occupied. With too many monks and not enough porridge, those who wanted to join in the fun were very dissatisfied and caused a ruckus in the group. In desperation, Chihao had to crowdfund again and booked the other 2 movie halls of the same cinema at the same time. However, it still couldn't satisfy everyone's needs. However, there was no other way. This was because the theater only had so many screenings for A Chinese Ghost Story. In order to meet the needs of the booking, the time was specially adjusted. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, the 3 movie halls would not play a new film with a low screening rate at the same time. The screening of A Chinese Ghost Story in the 3 major cinemas in the country had been announced on the official blog a few days ago. The average was 75%, which was already very good. As one of the films supported by the China-Hong Kong New Films, A Chinese Ghost Story enjoyed a 10% basic screening guarantee in the first week of the domestic cinemas, but they could not guarantee a specific time and a higher screening rate. The 75% was the result of Chunfei Media's efforts. In addition to the public relations of the cinemas, publicity was also indispensable. Liu Chun and Chunfei Er's connections in the circle also played a role, so the schedule was not too bad. It was also because of the strong performance of Decisive Battle of Vulcan that seriously squeezed the market space of A Chinese Ghost Story. If A Chinese Ghost Story did not perform well, then the screening rate would drop at any time. Cinemas were very realistic. The most important factor that affected their screening was the box office. Since Decisive Battle of Vulcan was released on March 20th, it had been nearly 2 weeks and the box office had exceeded 800 million yuan. In the absence of strong competitors, this Hollywood blockbuster's screening rate in cinemas remained high. It was said that the American Superstar Pictures intended to apply to the SARFD for an extension to further increase the box office results. Although there were very few Hollywood blockbusters that received the extension treatment, the chances of Decisive Battle of Vulcan succeeding were very small. This fully showed the current situation of this Hollywood blockbuster in the domestic film market. The more popular Decisive Battle of Vulcan was, the greater the pressure on A Chinese Ghost Story that was released today. Chihao, who had been paying attention to the blog, knew this very well. He had also participated in the war of words with the film critic Wang Xiaoxiu. Although he had confidence in Liu Chun, he did not think that Wang Xiaoxiu's analysis was reasonable. However, this did not shake Chihao's support for Liu Chun. The fact that he had come forward to organize this screening was a manifestation of this support. Chihao, who lived alone, had his dinner at a small restaurant outside. After eating, he rushed to the cinema. The cinema that the fan support group had booked belonged to the Guangying cinema chain. It was located in a large shopping mall and was very close to Chihao's rented apartment. It was a 10-minute walk away. This Guangying cinema had been open for less than a year. The equipment and facilities were very new, and the service was quite good. The movie ticket to the cinema had already been sent to everyone's mobile phones via QQ. After showing the cinema staff the ID of the movie ticket and scanning it, Chihao received his own bucket of popcorn and a cup of Coke and strode into Hall 1. The spacious hall was brightly lit, and more than half of the 700 seats were already occupied. Although the screening schedule in the cinema was very tight, and even if they booked the whole place, they wouldn't leave too much room, such a situation still stunned Chihao. It should be known that there were still about 20 minutes before the first movie was broadcasted. Isn't this Brother Housey? Just as Chihao was looking around for his seat, a fan who came early found him and recognized Chihao. Chihao had previously posted a photo in the QQ group. He was relatively famous in the fan group. When the other party shouted, almost everyone turned their heads and looked over. Chihao instantly became the focus of attention. Most people had never seen Chihao in person, so most of their eyes were filled with strong curiosity. This made Chihao feel very embarrassed. He could only smile awkwardly and wave his hand. Hi. Good evening, everyone. The next moment, the scene exploded. Chapter 588. Most of the fans of the support group who came to participate in this movie event were strangers in real life. However, on the internet and in the QQ group, many people's IDs were familiar to the ear. Chihao was undoubtedly one of them. He was also one of the initiators and organizers of the event. Therefore, when Chihao appeared at the scene, many fans stood up and greeted him warmly, regardless of whether they knew him or not. Damn, this is Brother Housie, and at least 1/10 as handsome as me. That's pretty good. Brother Housie, come to me. I'm old donkey. Haha, I finally saw the real person. It was worth the ticket price. Wife, come and see Brother Housie. Everyone was so enthusiastic that Chihao, who had a bucket of popcorn in one hand and a can of Coke in the other, couldn't refuse. He had to greet them one by one. Those who were not familiar with him first got familiar with him, and those who were familiar with him laughed and said a few words. After a while, time passed quickly, and more people came to the movie hall. Seeing that the movie was about to start, the lights in the movie hall gradually dimmed. Chihao, who was already sweating profusely, was finally able to get away and find a seat to sit down. As a result, when he pressed his butt against the seat, he accidentally dropped the bucket of popcorn in his hand. The scattered popcorn spilled on the neighboring seat, causing the other party to let out a crisp cry. It was a girl. Chihao stood with a dumbfounded face and apologized repeatedly. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Look, he, who rarely interacted with girls, wished he could find a hole to burrow into. It was too shameful. It doesn't matter, the girl next to him chuckled and said. Fortunately, it's not a can of Coke. Sit down, the movie is about to start. Chihao breathed a big sigh of relief and quickly sat down. At this time, he clearly saw the other party's appearance. It was also at this moment that Chihao swore to the heavens, to the earth, and to thousands of gods and Buddhas that he saw an angel, or rather, the lover of his dreams. The girl was in her 20s, wearing a goose yellow down jacket, with a round face, shoulder-length hair, very white skin, big eyes with long eyelashes, and a dimple on her right cheek when she smiled. Her appearance was not very beautiful, but there was a different kind of charm that instantly hit Chihao's heart. Chihao was stunned. Seeing his silly expression, the girl giggled and asked, Brother Housie, what's wrong? Chihao finally came to his senses and hurriedly said, No, nothing. You are? The girl introduced herself. I'm called Azure Sea in the group. Azure Sea. Chihao really did know that this was a rather active ID in Liu Chen's fan club. It was just that she liked Liu Chen's TV series, Autumn in My Heart, and Full House of Romance, while Chihao liked Liu Chen's music works. He wasn't very interested in the two romantic dramas, so they basically didn't have much interaction. There was no need to mention how much Chihao regretted it. If he had known that Azure Sea was such a lovely girl, he would have. I wonder if it's too late now? You came alone, Chihao asked tentatively, or with a friend? As soon as he finished speaking, a head popped out from behind Azure Sea and giggled. Have you taken a fancy to our sister Azure? If you want to pursue her, Brother Housie, you have to work harder and show your sincerity. Azure Sea's face suddenly turned red, and she angrily slapped her friend who came with her. Chihao was so happy that he was about to explode. In that case, Azure Sea didn't have a boyfriend and was still single. That was simply great. He had a strong feeling that the girl sitting next to him was the one he had been searching for all this time. Fate was so wonderful. If it weren't for Liu Chen's fan, if it weren't for the movie A Chinese Ghost Story, if it weren't for him proposing the activity on a whim, if his love wouldn't have come, the movie began. The movie hall, which was full of seats, quickly quieted down. All the sounds of discussion and laughter quietly disappeared. All the people present were Liu Chen's fans. They had gathered here today to enjoy Liu Chen's first movie and also to support their idol. This kind of support actually exceeded their expectations for the movie itself. However, everyone was not disappointed. 90 minutes was not long, but it was not short either. But for the 700 people present, it was too short. When the movie ended, the lights in the hall lit up. No one knew who started it, but then there was a round of warm applause. It's really good. No wonder he can get over 100 million yuan in Hong Kong. My Chun is awesome. I don't feel like I've seen enough. The ending is a little sad. Lu Chen Scholar is a little silly, and the feeling is very different. Chun Fei Er's Grandma Dryad is simply amazing. That Yin Qixia is very good. I quite like Nia Xiaoqian. She seems to be a newcomer, right? She's very beautiful. No matter how beautiful she is, she's not as domineering as my Fei Er. Although it was already time to leave, many people still sat reluctantly, excitedly talking about the plot and the characters in the movie. All of them wanted to say more. This kind of situation could not be seen in a venue for ordinary audiences. It was only at these kinds of fan gatherings that people would chat enthusiastically with unfamiliar people because they had a common favorite idol. Chi Hao summoned the courage that he had accumulated after watching a movie and said to Azure C, who had just gotten up and was about to leave, "Can I treat you to something? Ice cream?" Azure C said, "Ah." She wanted to refuse. After all, they had only met for the first time. Although Chi Hao's character was very good on the internet, girls had their own reservations. How could she easily agree to his invitation? How could she not see that Chi Hao had a good impression of her? However, she had a good friend who heard it and immediately shouted, "Ice cream? Everyone, pay attention." Brother Hausie said he would treat everyone to ice cream. Her best friend was simply pushing Chi Hao into a fire pit. There were hundreds of people present. Even if each person bought an ice cream cone that cost 3 yuan, it would still cost more than 2,000 yuan. When the people who did not know the truth heard this, they immediately started to make a ruckus. Brother Hausie is treating. Chi Hao felt like vomiting blood. However, looking at the girl in front of him, how could he say no? It's just a week's salary. I'll go all out. It's my treat. 1 ice cream cone per person. Although it was just an ice cream cone, it still turned the movie hall into a sea of laughter. Chi Hao no longer felt that he was at a disadvantage. That night, he watched an extremely wonderful movie and met a girl who moved his heart. Chapter 589. This movie is very good. Yes, the special effects are a little ordinary, but the storyline is very good. The soundtrack is even better. I like the theme song and interlude. It's worthy of being produced by Lu Chun. Logically speaking, the special effects are also not bad. The scene where Yin Qixia fights Granny Treyant is very exciting. My Chun is mighty. I want to watch it again. Just after 8:30 p.m., a large number of audiences poured out of the light shadow cinema. They came to the lobby in 2s and 3s, chatting and laughing, making the originally spacious lobby quickly crowded. Some of the audiences who had just finished watching the movie took the elevator or directly took the stairs to leave, but most of them were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they called their friends and chatted in the lobby. Today was Sunday, the last day of the weekend. It was also the prime time for watching movies, so the business of the newly open light shadow cinema was very good. There were many audiences who came to watch the movie. Some were waiting in the lobby, and some were buying tickets. Suddenly, so many people came out, and everyone was talking about the same movie. From the reviews, it seemed that the movie was very good. Such a scene was definitely rare. Therefore, someone asked curiously, "Hey, buddy, what movie are you watching?" The person who was asked smiled and said, "It's a Chinese ghost story that has just been released. I strongly recommend it. I'll give it a 5-star rating." "It's really good?" The person who asked suddenly hesitated. He could not help but turn his head and ask his girlfriend beside him, "Why don't we watch this too?" At present, the most popular movie in the cinema was, of course, Battle of Vulcan. However, he had already seen this Hollywood blockbuster, and his girlfriend did not like this kind of sci-fi theme. She had originally planned to watch Our Youth is Not Lonely. Our Youth is Not Lonely was a domestic youth inspirational film. It had just hit the major cinemas in the country yesterday, and the box office on its first day had exceeded 10 million. Its reputation on the internet was not bad. His girlfriend thought for a moment and said, "Then let's watch this." The person who asked nodded and turned to the ticket office to buy tickets. However, it was a pity that the tickets for the next few shows of A Chinese Ghost Story were all sold out. This was because there were a lot of online reservations today, and there were not many showtimes in the cinema. Damn, the man cursed gloomily and could only buy tickets for Our Youth is Not Lonely. Because it was a public place, his cursing was not loud, but even so, Li Lu still heard him in the crowd. The corners of his lips twitched, revealing a meaningful smile. Li Lu was the general manager of Guangying Cinemas' marketing department. He was thin and unassuming, but he had been in the cinema industry for decades and had a wealth of experience. As the head of the marketing department, he paid a lot of attention to the domestic film market. Before any new film was officially released, he would try his best to understand the relevant information of the film. In the end, he would provide valuable reference for the cinema and even the cinema chain. Guangying Cinemas was a newly established cinema chain. Compared to the top 3 cinema chains in the country, it was still very weak. Because of this, Light Shadow had to have the best service and the sharpest sense of smell in order to establish a territory that belonged to them in this extremely competitive market. Li Li's responsibilities were heavy, and his sense of responsibility was also very strong. Whenever a new film was screened at Guangying, even if it was a film that didn't seem to have much box office potential, he would still pay attention to it on the spot. Simply put, it was to pay attention to the audience's reaction. Today was the first day that Lu Chen's first film, A Chinese Ghost Story, was released in China. As Guangying Cinemas had booked 3 cinemas in advance, Li Lu paid special attention to it. Regarding Lu Chen, Li Lu has a certain understanding. He still admires the young star who has risen rapidly like a comet in the entertainment industry and is both strength and idolatry. Of course, admiration was admiration. Li Lu would not say that he would increase the number of screenings of Chinese Ghost Story in Guangying Cinemas. He conducted a serious investigation on the screening of Chinese Ghost Story in Xiangjiang. The results of the investigation were beyond Li Li's expectations. His friends in the same industry in Xiangjiang told him that the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story of more than 100 million was completely credible. There was basically no case of buying or fabricating the box office. In addition, the peripheral sales of Chinese Ghost Story were also not fake. The 40 million plus sales miracle shocked the Xiangjiang industry. It was not that there were no doubts, but that there was no problem at all. Unless the big and small cinemas in Xiangjiang teamed up to fake it, that was even more impossible. At that time, Li Lu was silent for a long time. After smoking an entire pack of cigarettes, he submitted an investigation report and proposal to the higher-ups of the cinema chain. He suggested to increase the screening rate of A Chinese Ghost Story and to stock up on its peripheral products in advance to deal with the possible hot market. In this document, Li Lu could be said to have staked his reputation. If the cinema chain listened to his suggestion and the results were very different from his prediction, then his future in Guangying would be worrying. Li Lu actually did not need to do this at all. Anyone who had been in the industry for decades should know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. They would not put themselves in a passive and disadvantageous situation. However, Li Lu was gambling. He was betting that the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story would explode. Once he was right, his position in the eyes of the higher-ups of the cinema chain would increase greatly. Li Lu was not a gambler. He was using his keen sense of the market to decisively seize the opportunity. Although the cinema chain did not completely accept the suggestion in the end, the screening rate of A Chinese Ghost Story still exceeded 25% in Guangying, second only to the final battle of Vulcan. At least 1/3 of the display cabinets in the surrounding shops were displaying the peripheral products of A Chinese Ghost Story. Today was the first day of the screening of A Chinese Ghost Story. The surging tide of moviegoers made Li Lu smell a hint of success. The discussions and evaluations of the film from all directions were all increasing his confidence bit by bit. Of course, he knew that many of these audiences were Lu Chen's fans. It was already common for fans to come to the cinema to support the stars. It was far easier for them to get good reviews than ordinary audiences. However, the object of these fans' discussion was not limited to the role played by Lu Chen. There were positive comments about the entire movie's storyline, characteristics, and even special effects. That was not simple. It was a pity that the screening for A Chinese Ghost Story was still a little less. Otherwise, today's box office results would be even better. Li Lu thought to himself as he looked at the surrounding shops not far away. He wondered how much the peripheral products of Chinese Ghost Story could sell. Chapter 590. In the cinema, Li Lu was observing and thinking. In Beijing, 1,000 kilometers away, in the office of Chunfei Media's headquarters in the New Era Art Center, Lu Chun was also waiting. He was waiting for the box office results of A Chinese Ghost Story on the first day. To be honest, although he had full confidence in his film, when A Chinese Ghost Story was really released, Lu Chun still felt a long-lost anxiety and a little uneasiness. In the face of a strong opponent, he had done his best in terms of film publicity. The quality of the film itself was not a problem to pass the test of the Hong Kong market, but this did not mean that A Chinese Ghost Story would definitely be able to achieve a high box office. There was a lot of uncertainty in the market. Audiences in different places had different tastes, and there were many factors that affected them to spend dozens of yuan to watch a movie in the cinema. Some films were advertised with great vigor, and the box office was predicted to be very high. The investment cast and special effects were all in place, but the audience did not approve of it after it was released. In the end, it ended up being a failure. There were also some films that were not optimistic about in advance. The publicity was not good enough, but they relied on word of mouth to win countless audiences. As a light and shadow magic film, if one wanted to take out the money from the pockets of the audience, strength and luck were indispensable. The cost of A Chinese Ghost Story had long been recovered, and it had made a good profit through the sales of peripheral products. However, for any filmmaker, the domestic market was the ultimate test of the work. The box office of the movies in Hong Kong was limited, but the potential of the mainland was endless. Lu Chun did not care how much money A Chinese Ghost Story could bring him in the end, but he also hoped that his first movie could be a success in China. That was why he was nervous. Ta-ta! There was a gentle knock on the door of the room. Lu Chun, who was sitting in front of the computer and browsing the web, did not look up. "Please come in." The door was pushed open, and a pretty lady walked in with a steaming hot cup of coffee. It was not until the coffee cup was placed on the table that Lu Chun woke up. "Feya, why aren't you resting yet?" It was not his assistant who brought him the coffee, but Chun Fei smiled gently and said, "I'll accompany you to wait for the results." Lu Chun couldn't help but feel a trace of sweetness in his heart. He didn't pick up the cup to drink the coffee. Instead, he reached out and hugged Chun Fei, letting her sit on his lap. Chun Fei did not resist and naturally leaned into his embrace. Lu Chun rested his chin on her shoulder and breathed in his girlfriend's familiar body fragrance. The nervousness in his heart disappeared without a trace, and his whole body relaxed. "Are you nervous?" Chun Fei asked curiously. When she came in just now, she noticed Lu Chun's expression and could tell what he was feeling. Lu Chun smiled self-deprecatingly and frankly said, "Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm suddenly afraid of failure." Chun Fei couldn't help but reach out and caress his face. "It's okay if we fail. We can afford to lose." Her impression of Lu Chun was optimistic, strong, and calm. It was rare for him to show weakness and fear like this. But it was precisely this Lu Chun that made her feel incomparably real in flesh and blood. Lu Chun smiled and said, "I know. Maybe I care too much. After all, this is the first operation of our company. I don't want to let everyone down, but now I'm not worried. I believe in myself." Chun Fei felt that the confident and invincible Lu Chun had returned. She didn't say much, but took the initiative to give a kiss, using her actions to express her support for Lu Chun. Good times always pass quickly. The coffee on the table turned from hot to cold, and it was already past midnight. At 1:27 p.m., the first-day box office results of A Chinese Ghost Story were released. Thanks to the great development of the internet and the IT industry, things that were originally impossible in the past have become very common now. The data of all cinemas across the country was summarized to the cinema chain and then transmitted to Qinfei Media. It only took less than 2 hours to complete. 75 million. The first-day box office of A Chinese Ghost Story was nearly 40 million. There was immediately a burst of cheers in the office area outside. The employees who stayed up late with Lu Chan saw the box office results immediately and were all excited. Although this box office was much worse than the 120 million yuan Battle of Vulcan on the first day, one had to know that the average screening of A Chinese Ghost Story was less than 20%. As a Sino-Hong Kong co-production with a low investment, it was already very dazzling. With such an outstanding first-day box office, as long as there was no significant drop in the next few days, the screening of A Chinese Ghost Story would definitely increase. After all, its main opponent had already been in theaters for 2 weeks. Unlike the cheering employees, Lu Chen only felt a little happy about the box office results and was not too excited. This was because he knew very well that behind the box office of nearly 40 million yuan were the countless fans of himself and Chun Fei-er. According to what he knew, the fan groups of the two of them in various major cities had organized booking activities. Many fans had booked movie tickets in advance. It was normal for the box office to be high. If it was low, there'd be a big problem. So he continued to wait. He waited for the sales data of the peripheral products to come out. Peripheral products were different from movie tickets. Although they were all scanned and recorded by the computer, it involved different situations in each cinema. The time it took for the statistics to be summarized was not that fast. The sales results of the peripheral products were undoubtedly more important to Lu Chen now, because it could more truthfully reflect the reputation of A Chinese Ghost Story among the audience. Many fans were willing to spend 30 to 50 yuan to support their idol at the cinema. However, in the face of hundreds of peripheral products, it was not easy for them to pay for it except for a few real hardcore fans. Unless they really liked the movie, liked the story and characters in the movie, they would not be willing to pay for it. Unlike the United States, the domestic market for movie peripherals was not too big, especially for domestic movies. They had almost given up on this market. That was why Wang Xiaoshu thought that A Chinese Ghost Story was faking its peripheral sales. Whether they could prove their innocence or not, the sales on the first day were undoubtedly crucial. Lu Shi came as well. She and Chun Fei-er accompanied Lu Chen to wait for the results. It was not until 2:57 a.m. that the peripheral sales data from the cinema chain was finally sent over. 98 million. There were once again warm cheers and loud applause in the office area of Qinfei Media. It was done. The boulder in Lu Chen's heart finally fell to the ground. He could not help but let out a long sigh of relief. This result was even better than he had expected. Chapter 591. 75 million in box office and 98 million in peripheral sales meant that A Chinese Ghost Story had created more than 60 million in sales on the first day. For a movie that had a screening rate of just over 15%, it was already very dazzling. Most importantly, the 98 million in peripheral sales was too beautiful. It did not lose to some popular Hollywood IP blockbusters at all, and the profits were more than the proportion of the box office. In the following movie release cycle, the peripherals of A Chinese Ghost Story could become a golden hen that laid eggs. Many of the employees who stayed at Qinfei Media that night were in the industry and deeply understood the meaning of this. Therefore, their cheers were from the bottom of their hearts. In addition to the box office and peripheral sales on the first day, the audience's comments on A Chinese Ghost Story on Wave's blogs, film and television-related websites, and forums were also collected and summarized by the marketing staff of Qinfei Media. Guangying website rating 8.7, 1,785 ratings. Guangying website was a very famous community website in China. It mainly recommended and reviewed movies, television shows, and books. The Guangying ratings largely reflected the audience's evaluation of movies and TV series. This part of the audience was mainly artistic and petty bourgeois netizens, so their ratings had nothing to do with the movie's box office and TV series ratings. It only represented a kind of comment direction. It was worth mentioning that the shareholder of Guangying website was Guangying Cinemas. As a commercial film, it was undoubtedly rare for a Chinese ghost story to be able to obtain an 8.7 rating on Guangying website, which was more artistic and niche. That was because the members of Guangying website were quite picky. On Tomato website, 5,693 fresh tomatoes, 385 rotten tomatoes. The freshness is 23%. Tomato website was a more popular movie website. Whether it was influence or scale, it was not something that Guangying website could compare with. The evaluation of the film on this website was not reflected by the score. Instead, the audience who liked it would send a fresh tomato, virtual rating prop, and those who did not like it would send a rotten tomato. The number of fresh tomatoes minus the rotten tomatoes divided by the original number was the freshness. On the other hand, if the number of rotten tomatoes exceeded the fresh tomatoes, then the rotten tomatoes would be calculated, the sign of a rotten film. For a movie that had just been released, as long as the quality was not too bad or too ugly, usually the freshness would be higher. However, there were only two situations where the freshness could exceed 90% on the first day. One was that the producers had cheated to increase the number of tomatoes, and the other was that the movie was indeed well received. Whether it was Lu Chan Studio in the past or Chinfei Media now, although they attached great importance to online publicity and marketing, they never used cheating methods to falsify. This was Lu Chen's pride. Therefore, without any cheating, a Chinese ghost story got 93% freshness, which was undoubtedly a very exciting thing. Especially for the marketing department of Chinfei Media, it was equivalent to millions of publicity. Wave's blog movie rating, 4. 5 stars, 25,307 reviewers. A 5-star rating of 86. 75%. QQ movie rating 9. 1. There were many professional or unprofessional film rating websites in the country, but there were only 10 or so that had influence and reference value. When the data of these 10 or so websites were summed up, the overall rating of A+ for a Chinese ghost story, second only to the highest S grade. Any movie, even if it had an A rating on the first day, would already be considered a preliminary success in the market. An A+ rating meant a good reputation. This score, which was calculated by a special software, also represented a strong follow-up market potential. It could affect the number of cinemas and cinemas. Clap, clap, clap. When Lu Chan walked out of the office with Chen Fei and Lu Shi, the employees who had been working hard in front of the computer all stood up. They congratulated and paid tribute to the boss with neat and loud applause. Thank you, everyone. Lu Chan raised his hands with a smile, motioned everyone to be quiet, and then said, "Thank you for your hard work. I believe everyone must be very hungry now, right? I'll treat everyone to a midnight snack." Although it was already 3 o'clock in the morning, in Beijing, it was not a problem to find a restaurant to eat at any time, especially in the business district and business district, where there were many businesses that were open all night. Tomorrow, no, it should be today's holiday. After eating and drinking, everyone should have a good sleep. All employees' bonuses this month will be doubled. When Lu Chun said the last sentence, the cheers in the office area almost broke the glass. This kind of atmosphere, full of vigor and vitality, basically didn't exist in those big companies and groups. It represented the power of prosperity and a strong cohesiveness. A Chinese ghost story's first-day box office, 38. 75 million peripheral sales, 25. 98 million inch QQ. The rise of a new genre of domestic movies. A Chinese ghost story's box office yesterday was excellent. Shocking word of mouth. EasyNet. A new record for domestic movie peripheral sales. A Chinese ghost story sells 25. 98 million. Movie Express. Unafraid of the pressure of Hollywood blockbusters, a Chinese ghost story delivers a good result on the first day. Everyday entertainment. On April 3rd, the second day of the official release of A Chinese Ghost Story in China, many websites, media, and newspapers published review articles and even appeared on the entertainment headlines of several major websites. In the current domestic film market, the box office of $38.75 million on the first day of A Chinese Ghost Story was actually not high. In recent years, there were many films with a box office of more than $100 million on the first day. A box office of $30 to $40 million did not have much reporting value at all. Unless the film's public relations investment was in place, then they could brag about it with their eyes open. However, the situation of A Chinese Ghost Story was different from other films. First of all, this film was quite a hot topic on the internet. A few days ago, the famous film critic Wang Xiaoxiu and Lu Qin's fans had a war of words on Wave's blog. At one point, it was even on the homepage of the hot search list. Secondly, the investment of this film was only 30 million yuan, and its opponent was the Hollywood special effects blockbuster Vulcan, which was currently in the limelight. There is also the failure of the similar film The Painted Skin. With less than 20% of the screening, it was able to obtain a box office of nearly 40 million on the first day. It was really worth it. However, the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story was not the focus of the media's interest, but its peripheral sales. 98 million. This data was too dazzling, making people unable to look at it directly. They even had doubts. Many people, including many media reporters, wanted to ask, was this real? It was too explosive, because Vulcan, which crushed A Chinese Ghost Story in the box office, completely lost to this new film produced by China and Hong Kong in peripheral sales. Chapter 592. Before A Chinese Ghost Story, peripherals were basically a minefield for domestically produced movies, including Hong Kong and Taiwanese movies. Movie peripherals were almost exclusive to Hollywood movies in the United States. The sales of peripherals in movies adapted from novels, comics, and games could even exceed the box office. The huge profits were really enviable. It was not that domestic filmmakers and film investors had not tried it before. They also wanted to eat some cake from it, but they were often beaten black and blue. In the end, they were all discouraged. The reason for this was rather complicated. The maturity of the market, the audience's acceptance, and even the peripherals themselves were all related. The popular IP of domestically produced movies also lacked the creativity and willingness to produce peripherals. They often relied on posters and the like to make up the numbers. In the past, domestically produced movie peripherals sold the best, claiming to have sold tens of millions of copies. However, the data was questionable and very exaggerated. A Chinese Ghost Story had sold 98 million yuan of peripherals on the first day. Although there was the fan effect of Lu Qin and Chen Fer, it was still very unbelievable in the eyes of the industry. Doubtful, the circle fell silent. However, the reaction of Lu Qin's fans was completely different. When the official Weibo of Chinese Ghost Story released the first-day box office and peripheral sales results, countless fans ran to Wang Xiaoxiu's blog to mock it. Didn't you say that the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story was not good? It was nearly 40 million on the first day. Didn't you say that the peripherals of A Chinese Ghost Story were fake? It was more than 25 million on the first day. Wang Xiaoxiu, who had always refused to admit defeat, chose to remain silent for once. He did not retaliate tit for tat. That was because he was not sure if his previous judgment and prediction were accurate. The box office results of A Chinese Ghost Story on the first day could not be determined. The movie's early publicity and hype were good, and with the popularity of two popular celebrities, it was natural for the box office to be high. Some movies had a high box office on the first day, but after a few days, they would reveal their true colors. As the number of people watching the movie increased, their reputation would rapidly decline, resulting in a dismal ending. Could A Chinese Ghost Story be one of them? Wang Xiaoxiu was not completely confident. Even though his previous prediction was based on his understanding of the market, the sales of A Chinese Ghost Story were too dazzling. It was really unbelievable. As a well-known film critic in the industry, Wang Xiaoxiu had his own information channels and sources, so he more or less knew the inside story. The first-day box office and peripheral sales of A Chinese Ghost Story might very well be completely real. This made Wang Xiaoxiu feel as if his common sense had been subverted. He shut himself at home for an entire day, stationed in front of the computer, browsing the web, and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes. In the end, Wang Xiaoxiu decided to go to the cinema to watch A Chinese Ghost Story and understand the situation. Without investigation, he had no right to speak. He was prepared to seriously write a review of A Chinese Ghost Story. The movie tickets that Wang Xiaoxiu had booked online were for the night of April 4th. He was also free the night before, but perhaps because it was too late, he didn't manage to book the tickets to the nearby cinemas. The tickets for the night show were all sold out. At 8 p.m. on April 4th, Wang Xiaoxiu finished watching the movie that he had once questioned in Hall 3 of the Mother Earth Cinema in Beijing's 3rd Ring Road. It was exactly 9:30 when he finished watching the movie. Wang Xiaoxiu was squeezed in the crowd and looked a little ugly. Then he went to the movie and souvenir shop on the right side of the hall. In a cinema where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, the area of the surrounding shops was, of course, not large. The large space was reserved for the ticket office, drinks, and food. The sales of popcorn could account for 20 to 30% of a cinema's revenue. When Wang Xiaoxiu arrived, there were already more than 10 to 20 customers in the shop. They were all young people, and most of them were couples. The place was filled with large movie posters, and several display counters were filled with all kinds of movie peripherals. There were figurines, sets of accessories, props, costumes, daily necessities, and so on. It was a dazzling lineup under the spotlight. Wang Xiaoxiu noticed that the goods on the display counter of the Mother Earth Cinema were almost divided into 2 parts. Half of them were peripherals of the showdown of Vulcan, such as spaceship models, cartoonish versions of the male and female protagonists, alien monsters, and so on. They were full of technology and were quite expensive. It was said that most of the peripherals of Hollywood movies were processed and manufactured in the United States, so these things were basically imported. It was normal for them to be expensive. The other half was filled with peripherals for A Chinese Ghost Story. There were figurines of different versions of the movie's characters, movie posters, soundtrack albums, and a commemorative set that included accessories. Wang Xiaoxiu even saw a shining sword, the model of Qian Xiao's magic sword. The sword hanging on the wall was a real thing made of metal. Although it did not have a sharpened edge, it was very well made. The details were as gentle as in the movie. 8 dark red seal scripts faintly appeared on the surface of the sword. Heaven and earth infinite borrow the power of heaven and earth. Wang Xiaoxiu was very familiar with these 8 words. In the movie, Qi Xiaoyan was crazy and infatuated. When he cast spells, he chanted the incantation, which made people's blood boil. In Wang Xiaoxiu's opinion, Qi Xiaoyan was the most distinctive and dazzling character in the movie, and it had been a long time since such an impressive character had appeared in a domestic movie. He casually picked up a Qi Xiaoyan doll that was placed on a glass cabinet. It was only the size of a palm, but it was made to look lifelike. Its form, spirit, and intent were all in place. It was not inferior to the dolls in Showdown with Vulcan at all. In fact, it even surpassed them in terms of characteristics. Wang Xiaoxiu knew very well that such a thing could not be produced in a day or 2. The design, mold, and production all took time. The film had undoubtedly started planning very early on, and its price was only half that of its competitors. How bold! Wang Xiaoxiu secretly sighed in his heart. He put the Qi Xiaoyan doll back, but after hesitating for a moment, he picked it up again and walked toward the cashier. 58 yuan was really not expensive, and he really liked it. There were already 2 couples lining up in front of the cashier, and they bought more than Wang Xiaoxiu. Wang Xiaoxiu waited patiently. After paying, he did not stop. When he returned home, he put the doll he had just bought on the desk and smoked 3 cigarettes. Wang Xiaoxiu was not a heavy smoker, but he had smoked very fiercely since yesterday. After he finished smoking, the smoke was still lingering in the study. Wang Xiaoxiu seemed to have made an important decision in his heart. He suddenly straightened up and began typing quickly on the keyboard with both hands. On the computer screen, a line of black title text was quickly forming. A solemn apology to Chinese ghost story. Chapter 593. Some people would try their best to deny, avoid, or simply pretend to be dead when they did something wrong or said the wrong thing. However, some people would apologize openly, even if it might affect their reputation. There were many big V's and small V's on Waves' blog. There were both types of people. The former undoubtedly outnumbered the latter. Some would even rather go to court and lose money than apologize because they were worried that they would lose fans. Wang Xiaoxiu was undoubtedly the latter. He was very good at writing and never easily admitted defeat when arguing with others in his column and blog. However, if he was really wrong, he would not insist on it for the sake of face. At 10:05 p.m. on April 4th, the well-known writer and film critic solemnly apologized to a Chinese ghost story and Lu Chun on his personal blog, which had 1.75 million fans. The reason for the apology was naturally because he had questioned the box office and peripheral sales of a Chinese ghost story in Hong Kong on Weekly Movie Talk. It turned out that he was wrong. That was because tonight, Wang Xiaoxiu personally went to the cinema to watch the movie and bought a peripheral product. Without investigation, he had no right to speak. He admitted that he had made a subjective mistake and had a habitual bias against domestic movies. However, he did not expect a Chinese ghost story to be so outstanding. In this blog post, Wang Xiaoxiu praised a Chinese ghost story. He felt that the movie had reached a very high standard in terms of plot, characters, soundtrack, background props, and special effects. Especially in terms of soundtrack and character creation, it could be called a real masterpiece. The peripheral products of a Chinese ghost story were not only abundant in quantity, but also of excellent quality. The price was not very expensive. It was both unexpected and reasonable for it to be able to achieve such high sales. Whether it was the movie itself or the peripheral products, the producers had done it with the word heart. In the past decade or so, the domestic film market had continued to be popular. Coupled with the advent of the internet era, film reviews were no longer limited to a few professionals. Online blogs, Taobao forums, and netizens who discussed the film were everywhere. However, in this circle that was neither big nor small, Wang Xiaoxiu was undoubtedly an influential film critic. Not only did his film review articles appear on his personal blog, but they were also often published in newspapers and magazines. Therefore, when his movie review, written in the form of an apology, was published on his blog, it immediately caused quite a stir in the industry. Many people in the industry forwarded or commented on it. When the fans who had been mocking Wang Xiaoxiu saw this, they immediately changed their stance. They liked Wang Xiaoxiu's sincere apology and forwarded it in large numbers. The number of fans on Wang Xiaoxiu's blog quickly exceeded 2 million. Many ordinary netizens who saw Wang Xiaoxiu's blog post couldn't help but be curious about a Chinese ghost story. Everyone wanted to see if this highly praised film was genuine, so they all ordered tickets online. Although some people suspect that Wang Xiaoxiu has been paid to join hands with Lu Chun to hype up, such a voice is too weak to set off any storm. The reason was very simple. It was because the opponent that a Chinese ghost story was facing was an imported Hollywood blockbuster, and not a domestic film with a huge investment. Otherwise, the voices of doubt would be at least 10 times louder. Public opinion on the internet could affect reality, especially the reputation of a movie. A Chinese ghost story had a box office of 38.75 million on the first day of April 2nd, and it broke through 40 million the next day. On the 4th, it reached 43 million, breaking through 100 million in 3 days. What was even more shocking was that on April 5th, the box office of a Chinese ghost story soared to 65 million plus, and the screening rate had exceeded 30%, strongly beating Showdown with Vulcan. Showdown with Vulcan had been released for 2 weeks, so it was inevitable that the box office would decline. However, The problem was that ever since A Chinese Ghost Story was released, its box office had declined very much. Especially on the 5th, it had fallen to 37 million, losing to the 28 million box office of A Chinese Ghost Story. In the words of a certain person in the industry, it was a shock to the eyes of the entire world. Showdown with Vulcan was aiming for more than 1 billion yuan. Its real opponent was originally Lion Pictures' fantasy blockbuster, Legend of the Holy Land, which would be released on April 9th. It was also a Hollywood blockbuster with a huge investment. Unexpectedly, it lost to A Chinese Ghost Story before Legend of the Holy Land arrived. In terms of publicity, scale of investment, and special effects, Showdown with Vulcan could easily crush A Chinese Ghost Story. Such a result was really shocking. On April 6th, 7th, and 8th, the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story continued to rise with the increase in the screening rate, pulling out an extremely dazzling line. On the 8th, the day before Legend of the Holy Land was released, the box office broke 100 million yuan in a single day. For a domestically produced movie, this was undoubtedly a miraculous existence. Although it was not unique, it was definitely the only one in recent years. From April 2nd to 8th, A Chinese Ghost Story was released for a week, and its box office reached 420 million yuan in the first week. The industry fell silent. Many people knew that the investment for A Chinese Ghost Story was only 30 million yuan. The domestic publicity and marketing were basically not much different from this amount. Even if the subsequent publicity investment was included, it would not exceed 100 million yuan at most. The 420 million yuan box office had already steadily earned back all the costs and achieved a considerable profit. Not only that, the peripheral sales of A Chinese Ghost Story had also reached more than 80 million yuan, creating an unprecedented record for domestically produced movies, including Hong Kong and Taiwanese movies. Furthermore, this sales result had Big Battle of Vulcan, a Hollywood blockbuster with an investment of more than 100 million US dollars, actually lost to a domestically produced movie in peripheral sales. This was something unimaginable in the past, but it had really happened now. This could not help but remind people of Lu Chen's bold words on his blog, saying that A Chinese Ghost Story would take in 500 million yuan at the box office and over 100 million yuan in peripheral sales. At that time, other than Lu Chen's hardcore fans, not many people believed him. Many people in the industry even secretly mocked his arrogance, thinking that he had lost his mind. What about now? It was not a problem for A Chinese Ghost Story to exceed 500 million yuan at the box office. It was not a dream to hit 1 billion yuan, but it had such real potential. Those who had mocked Lu Chen back then had their faces slapped swollen. The real surprise was yet to come. On April 9th, due to the release of Legend of the Holy Land, A Chinese Ghost Story finally dropped as if relieved of a heavy burden. The box office on that day was 87 million yuan. However, with almost the same screening rate, the box office of Legend of the Holy Land only exceeded 80 million yuan. It actually lost to A Chinese Ghost Story, which had been released for 8 days on its first day. Chapter 594. The film industry was a highly profitable industry. Take the current domestic film market, for example. With so many film companies in it, the 3 major cinema chains and small and medium-sized cinema chains were desperately building cinemas all over the country. Of course, they wanted to take a bite out of this extremely tempting cake. In the past decade, there was no lack of films with only an investment of 20 to 30 million yuan that became a huge success. In the end, they earned hundreds of millions or even more than 1 billion yuan at the box office. The profits were so high that it was enough to shame the traditional industry. However, if one carefully analyzed these low-budget, high-box office films, they would discover the secret behind them. They were either young idols or comedies. There were basically no exceptions. Other high-box office films came from high investment. Investment of 1 to 200 million yuan was common. Domestic blockbusters were trying their best to approach Hollywood in terms of special effects, which also led to the continuous increase in production costs. As a domestically produced film, A Chinese Ghost Story had not surpassed everyone at the box office. There were many domestically produced films that had grossed more than 500 million yuan in the first week. There were 7 or 9 examples that could be casually mentioned. However, A Chinese Ghost Story was a fantasy ghost film with a small investment. The 420 million yuan in the first week made it an extremely special example. It also seemed to have opened a door for its peers in the industry. It turned out that this type of movie could be made like this. A Chinese Ghost Story did not involve much computer special effects, and the production was rather sophisticated. Many scenes used props and traditional filming methods, but after editing and synthesis, the effect was very outstanding, especially the battle scenes, which could be said to be ingenious. It was much better than those colorful and flashy special effects. And the reason for its success was not just that. The characters with distinct personalities, the poignant and moving love story, the main character's looks, and the impeccable ancient soundtrack formed a classic. That's right, it was a classic. After watching A Chinese Ghost Story, many people in the industry felt that this film was enough to lead the new trend of domestically produced fantasy/ghost films. It was fully qualified to become a classic. On the internet, A Chinese Ghost Story had a high reputation, and its overall rating had been maintained at A grade. Many film critics strongly recommended it on their own blogs, and the entertainment media reported on it. All these factors combined to create the high box office of A Chinese Ghost Story, which had also suppressed its new and biggest competitor, Legend of the Holy Land. Compared to A Chinese Ghost Story, Legend of the Holy Land, which had just been released, had a much worse reputation. This Hollywood blockbuster's box office in North America was lackluster. It had originally wanted to recoup its capital in China, but the audience did not really like it. On April 10th, the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story dropped slightly to 81 million yuan, taking another big step towards the 1 billion mark. On the other hand, Legend of the Holy Land dropped to 47 million yuan. Although the box office had exceeded 100 million yuan in 2 days, such a high drop clearly indicated a bleak future. Interestingly, another domestically produced film, Our Youth is Not Lonely, which was released at the same time as A Chinese Ghost Story, rose by 1 or 2 million yuan against the market, highlighting the weakness of Legend of the Holy Land. Nowadays, domestic movie audiences had already experienced the baptism of Hollywood blockbusters. It was obvious that pure special effects and visual stimulation could no longer satisfy everyone's needs. Therefore, Legend of the Holy Land, which focused on special effects and lacked in plot, was easily abandoned. From a certain point of view, the days when any Hollywood blockbuster could sweep the domestic market were long gone. However, many industry insiders believe that if there was no A Chinese Ghost Story, or if A Chinese Ghost Story was replaced by The Painted Skin, which had already been taken off the market, the box office of Legend of the Holy Land would not have fluctuated so much. On the evening of April 12th, Chunfei Media held a celebration party for the box office of A Chinese Ghost Story to exceed 500 million yuan at the Makati Cultural and Arts Center in Beijing. The threshold for movies was getting higher and higher. In the past, a box office of more than 100 million yuan was worth celebrating. Now, holding a celebration party with less than 500 million yuan would be laughed at. However, for A Chinese Ghost Story, a box office of 200 to 300 million yuan was enough. The box office earnings of the movie so far had already made the industry raise their eyebrows. Therefore, on the day of the celebration, all the media invited by Chunfei Media were present. There were also many uninvited reporters gathered outside the Arts Center, wanting to try their luck. The celebration party for A Chinese Ghost Story was held in a grand manner. It had been organized a few days ago, and all the original cast of Hong Kong had been invited, including Nie Mingzhu, who played the female lead, and Ma Rongjin, who played the role of Yin Qixia. The two of them also received a lot of attention from the media, especially Nie Mingzhu, who had already become popular in the mainland because of A Chinese Ghost Story. She became the focus of the scene, and there were countless flashes on her. As usual, other than the media, reporters, and guests in the industry, there were also many lucky fans. They had all obtained the qualifications through a lucky draw on the blog. These fans and guests got a beautiful gift as soon as they entered the venue. All of them were satisfied. They also made the atmosphere of the scene extremely lively and explosive, especially when Lu Chun, Chun Fei, Nie Mingzhu, and Ma Rongjin teamed up to open a huge bottle of champagne. The whole audience burst into thunderous cheers. After that, Lu Chun accepted interviews from many media outlets. There were nearly 20 microphones with logos in front of him, and even more reporters surrounded him. A reporter could not wait to ask, "Lu Chun, will you film the second installment of a Chinese ghost story?" Lu Chun shook his head without hesitation. "No, but I've already sold the copyright of a Chinese ghost story to my partners, so it's possible to make a second or even a third installment, but I won't participate in it again. If you want to make a movie, there were too many scripts to choose from. There was no need to rely on a sequel to rely on the original." This surprised the reporters a little. After all, it was completely reasonable for a movie to have a sequel. Lu Chun was actually willing to give up this huge profit. But then again, without him as the male lead, the sequel would lose a lot of its luster. "Then what do you want to shoot for your second movie?" Lu Chun smiled and said, "This is a secret for the time being. At present, I'm preparing to shoot my third TV series, You from the Star. It's expected to start filming at the end of this month." This was considered a piece of news that was neither big nor small. There would definitely be many TV fans of Lu Chun who would be interested in it. However, the reporters were not satisfied. Someone asked, "Excuse me, why did this movie choose a newcomer as the female lead and Chun Fei as the villain?" The reporters' eyes lit up, obviously hoping to dig out some big information from Lu Chun's mouth. Chapter 595. In the face of the endless questions from the reporters, Lu Chun answered them with ease. Even if the other party's questions might be tricky or even a little malicious, he was always able to deal with them easily. There was no lack of humor, which made the experienced reporters secretly admire him. If Lu Chun was a big shot in the circle who had been famous for many years, it would be normal for him to have such an outstanding performance. However, he had only debuted for 2 years, so it was inevitable that people would click their tongues in wonder. It could only be said that he was talented. In other words, Lu Chun was born to make a living in this bowl of rice. Such an evaluation was definitely not an exaggeration. Looking back at Lu Chun's singing and acting career over the past 2 years, it could only be described as a miracle. His rise in the circle was very fast. Although he was not unparalleled, his pop music and film and TV series were in full bloom and had borne fruitful results. It was really a unique existence. The domestic entertainment industry in 2015 and 2016 had really become very different with Lu Chun. And in 2017, he had opened the curtain on his own new year with a box office hit, A Chinese Ghost Story. It was believed that at this moment, the entire entertainment industry could feel his warmth. For a young man with a promising future, the reporters, who were used to seeing storms, were a lot more cautious. In addition, they had received a red packet, so the following questions seemed very normal. Interviews, celebrations, performances, lucky draws, a lively celebration party ended successfully. The reporters and fans who came to support left in satisfaction, while the original cast of The Chinese Ghost Story reunited again to reminisce about the past and talk about the future. Lucia had booked a table in a high-class restaurant near Makati Cultural and Arts Center. Lu Chun, Chun Fei, Nie Mingzhu, Wan Xiaoquan, Chen Wenxiang, Ma Rongjin, and the others were all gathered together. The atmosphere was harmonious and joyous. After 3 rounds of wine, Lu Chun specially toasted Ma Rongjin and asked, "Uncle Ma, how have you been recently?" Ma Rongjin drank the red wine in his glass in one gulp and said with a smile, "Thanks to young Master Lu, everything has gone smoothly." Today, he was wearing a brand-name suit. He looked energetic, and he looked at least 10 years younger. The celestial master celebrity from back then had returned. Everything was going well for Ma Rongjin now. The success of A Chinese Ghost Story had turned him around. His net worth and salary were close to the peak of his heyday. He had endless film contracts and advertisements, and he had long gotten rid of his previous embarrassing situation. Chen Wenxiang teased, "Brother Ma is in the limelight now." The number of girls pursuing him can line up from Hong Kong and Kowloon to Central. Ma Rongjin smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chong, please be magnanimous and have mercy on me." He even made a gesture of begging for mercy, which made everyone laugh. Even Nie Mingzhu, who was whispering to Chen Feier, raised her head. Her bright eyes wandered as she pursed her lips into a smile. Putting aside Lu Chun and Chen Feier, A Chinese Ghost Story had made two people famous in Hong Kong. One was Ma Rongjin, and the other was Nie Mingzhu, who played Nie Xiaoqian. However, unlike the proud Ma Rongjin, Nie Mingzhu did not choose the path of a rising star after becoming famous. She appeared to be extremely low-key. She did not accept any announcements or advertisements, nor did she participate in shows. She even rarely appeared in public. Many media outlets wanted to interview her, but they were all turned away. She seemed very mysterious. However, this mystery did not damage Nie Mingzhu's popularity in Hong Kong. Her fans were increasing, and many people even named her the #1 beauty in Hong Kong. Therefore, it caused a lot of trouble in the circle. However, no matter how much the outside world was buzzing, Nie Mingzhu still did her own thing. She did not look like someone from the entertainment industry at all. However, this time, she happily agreed to come to the celebration of the 500 million box office of A Chinese Ghost Story. She even accepted many media interviews. She really gave face. Lu Chen knew, through Chen Wenxiang, that Nie Mingzhu's family background was not ordinary. Making movies was just her interest. Ma Rongjin asked, "Young Master Lu, are you really not planning to make a second installment of A Chinese Ghost Story?" He knew that Lu Chen had transferred the follow-up movie rights of A Chinese Ghost Story to his partner, Jiang Pictures, and that he had also received a high-priced contract from Jiang Pictures. However, in the heart of this veteran actor, he still hoped that Lu Chen would be the lead actor in the sequel. The feeling of working with Lu Chen was really great. Ma Rongjin knew very well that if there was no Lu Chen, the second installment of A Chinese Ghost Story might have a good box office, but it would be wishful thinking if it wanted to win the same success as the first one. Many people in the Hong Kong film industry said that Yin Qixia was the essence of A Chinese Ghost Story, but Ma Rongjin knew very well that Lu Chen was the soul of this movie. Hearing Ma Rongjin's question, everyone turned to look at Lu Chen, including Nie Mingzhu. Lu Chen did not hesitate. He smiled but shook his head firmly and said, "No more." Although they knew the answer, everyone could not help but be disappointed. Most of the people present hoped to work together again, because the sense of accomplishment brought about by shooting a classic was really incomparable. Chen Wenxiang sighed and said, "What a pity." While feeling sorry, he also sincerely admired Lu Chen. One had to know that even many famous directors, after the success of their first movie, would strike while the iron was hot to rush to make a second or even a third movie. They would maximize the value of the successful movie and even make it to the point where the audience was tired of it. In the history of Hong Kong's film industry, there was no lack of sequels that were made. For Lu Chen to be able to resist such temptation, one could imagine how strong his will was. Once he made a decision, he would not easily change his mind. Often, such people could achieve the greatest success. However, even Chen Wenxiang did not expect that while Lu Chen was refusing, there was something else. He took out the gift bags that he had prepared and handed them to Wan Xiaoquan, Ma Rongjin, Nie Mingzhu, Chen Wenxiang, and the others. Everyone took them curiously. Nie Mingzhu asked, "What is it?" The square-shaped gift bag was quite heavy, and it was wrapped up nicely. Lu Chen smiled and said, "You will know when you open it." Nie Mingzhu did not stand on ceremony. She directly tore off the wrapping paper and was immediately stunned. It's a book." This gift bag was a hardcover edition of a novel. It was placed on the cover of the first ancient book, and the words "The Smiling, Proud Wanderer were very eye-catching. The smiling, proud wanderer. None of the people present were fools. Holding a set of 5 books in their hands, they all came to a sudden realization. Was this the second movie that Liu Chen was going to shoot? Did that mean that they would have a chance to work together again and shoot another movie together? A martial arts movie? Chapter 596. Wuxia movies were not a new genre. As early as the 70s and 80s, Xiangjiang's film companies had made many wuxia movies, which were quite popular at that time. But in the late 90s, due to the influence of Hollywood action blockbusters, Xiangjiang's local film industry was severely impacted. In order to cater to the appreciation of the new generation of young people, many types of movies, including zombie movies, ghost movies, and wuxia movies, gradually disappeared. If someone else wanted to make a wuxia movie, Ma Rongjin, Chen Wenxiang, and others, who knew the ups and downs of Xiangjiang's film industry very well, would definitely advise them not to get involved. But Liu Chen was different. Liu Chen proved his strong talent in movies with a Chinese ghost story, and a Chinese ghost story itself has a certain martial arts element. For example, at the beginning of the movie, the scene where Ning Kai-chen met a swordsman killing bandits on the road was really exciting. And this fighting scene was directed by Liu Chen, including the action design. In this aspect, he also had the ability to turn something rotten into something magical. Ma Rongjin weighed the book in his hand and said eagerly, "I'll take it back and read it carefully. Master Liu, what role should I play in this new movie?" Although he knew that he was too eager to ask, he really couldn't help it. Liu Chen smiled and said, "Uncle Ma, you can read the original book first. I haven't written the script for the movie yet. I'll give it to you in a month or 2. After a pause, he said, "The smiling, the proud wanderer will be made into 3 parts, at least 200 million yuan. Different from a Chinese ghost story, which was adapted from a short story in Strange Tales from Chinese studio. The smiling, the proud wanderer was millions of words long, and there were more than 5 physical publications. It was basically impossible to condense so much content into a 90-minute movie. The usual way was either to cut a wonderful part of the movie or to separate it into several parts. Liu Chen had already thought about it. The 3 parts of The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer, would be filmed consecutively, so as to save money and maintain the quality of continuity. In addition, The Smiling, The Proud Wanderer would be the first film of the newly formed special effects team of Chunfei Media. Ma Rongjin and Chen Wenxiang looked at each other. Both of them couldn't suppress the excitement on their faces. It was no wonder that Liu Chen wasn't willing to film a sequel to a Chinese ghost story. It turned out that his big move was at the back. He didn't want to live off his past achievements at all. His intention was to create the glory of martial arts movies. Ma Rongjin was even more excited. Since Liu Chen had given him the original novel, it meant that he could choose the roles in it. Furthermore, it was a huge investment. Liu Chen said to Chen Wenxiang, "Uncle Chang, help me find more talents in special effects in Hong Kong. As long as they have real skills and are willing to work in the capital, I'll pay them well." Xiangjiang's film industry was known as the Oriental Hollywood. Although it had declined, it had cultivated a large number of professional talents over the past few decades. The overall strength of special effects production was still stronger than that of the domestic industry. In recent years, many Hong Kong filmmakers had come to the mainland to seek development opportunities, including many animation engineers / senior special effects artists, etc., which had injected vitality into domestic movies. However, talents were hard to come by. These senior talents would either set up their own studios or join big companies. It was very difficult to poach them. On the contrary, it was easier to hunt in Xiangjiang. Chen Wenxiang patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, young Master Liu. I promise to find a few useful people for you." A Chinese ghost story won the box office champion in Xiangjiang, and it also made Liu Chen's Xiangjiang Film Studio famous. Chen Wenxiang naturally had the confidence to poach people by relying on this famous brand. In Liu Chen's vision, his Xiangjiang film studio was not only the bridgehead for Chunfei Media to establish a foothold in Xiangjiang, but also a base for poaching and cultivating talents. With Chen Wenxiang there, he could rest assured. After the discussion, everyone drank to their heart's content until late at night. Chen Wenxiang and the others would not return to Xiangjiang immediately. It was Ma Rongzhin's first time in the capital, so she naturally wanted to stay for a few more days. Nian Mingzhu and Chun Fei had an appointment to go shopping together. You two have such a good relationship now. Back at home in Purple Garden, Lu Chun smiled and said to Chun Fei, "Why don't we become sworn sisters?" Chun Fei snorted and said, "Sworn sisters? Do you want to sway left and right and enjoy the happiness of having two people?" "No," Lu Chun hurriedly complained, and his drunkenness turned into cold sweat. "I have never thought of it that way." During the screening of a Chinese ghost story in Xiangjiang, some unscrupulous media had hyped up this scandal between him and Nian Mingzhu, but it did not cause any trouble. Chun Fei also knew about it. Chun Fei giggled and rolled her eyes at him coquettishly. "I'm just joking with you. Look at how scared you are. In fact, if Mingzhu is willing, I'm very generous." Although Lu Chen drank a lot, his mind was still very clear. "I only need you." Chun Fei didn't believe him. "You make it sound nice." Although she said so, there was still an intoxicating smile on her face. Lu Chen's heart was swayed. He couldn't help hugging her waist and lowering his head to kiss her. "You stink." Chun Fei reached out to stop him and said with disgust, "Go brush your teeth and take a shower first. Or don't even think about getting on the bed." Lu Chen smiled and kissed her despite her resistance. Then he went to the bathroom to wash up with satisfaction. It was a charming night. The next morning, he was woken up by the phone on the bedside table. Lu Chen always carried 2 mobile phones with him. One was used for work, and he would turn it off when he was resting. The other was used for friends and family, and it was turned on 24 hours a day. Naturally, it was this one that rang. At this moment, Chun Fei was still curled up in his arms and sleeping soundly. Last night, the two of them had a lot of fun. Lu Chun quickly reached out to pick up the phone, for fear of waking up his girlfriend in his arms. "Hello?" Who was calling him early in the morning? A familiar voice came from the phone. "Lu Chun, this is Gao He. When will you have time to come to Hangzhou?" "Boss." Lu Chun was still a little confused and hadn't woken up yet. "What's the matter? Is it important?" Gao He laughed on the phone and said, "If it's not important, I won't call you. I'll tell you a piece of good news. The games we made have been completed and can be launched at any time." Lu Chun suddenly woke up and said, "You mean Happy Farm?" "Yes." Gao He replied decisively, "It's Happy Farm." Chapter 597. Happy Farm is a social, mobile, web game based on planting. Users can play the role of a farm owner on a virtual farm, reclaiming land in their own farm, growing various vegetables, fruits, and so on. This idea was put forward by Lu Chun and provided the funds needed for game production and website operation. It was a new internet project in cooperation with Gao He. At the beginning, Lu Chun came up with this creative idea. First of all, to fulfill the ill-fated couple of Gao He and Wang Xiaoling, so that their love can blossom and bear fruit. Career is the basis of love. Thus, Lu Chun invested 5 million yuan, accounting for 80% of the shares. Gao He and Wang Xiaoling invested 500,000 yuan, accounting for 10%, and the other 10% was used as incentive equity to reward employees who have contributed. With the full support of Lu Chun and excellent creativity, Gao He chose to stay in Hangzhou and start his career with Wang Xiaoling. Tian, Wang Xiaoling the young couple quickly set up a new company in Hangzhou and recruited people to invest in the production of Happy Farm. As an interactive game that takes into account both mobile and web terminals, Happy Farm is not complicated and can even be said to be quite simple. With sufficient funds and manpower, it could be completed in 2 or 3 months. Gao He took the 5 million yuan invested by both sides, the guarantee of follow-up capital investment from Lu Chun, and the complete creative idea. It can be said that it was clean and full. With a group of like-minded employees, it took less than 2 months to come up with the first version of Happy Farm. However, when he hurriedly handed over the game to Lu Chun for review, he was poured cold water by Lu Chun. Lu Chun pointed out the problems of the first version of Happy Farm, such as the number of vegetables and fruits that can be planted is too small, the props are not rich enough, the interaction is not strong enough, the art design does not meet the requirements of cute, and even the basic color is not attractive enough. Lu Chun understands that Gao He is eager to prove his ideas and the pressure of running the company, but since he has to do it, he must do it to the best. Only things that are seriously polished can have lasting vitality. After Lu Chun's criticism and reminder, Gao He's hot head finally calmed down. He humbly accepted the opinions and suggestions put forward by Lu Chun, settled down, and continued to complete the game program, and hired experienced designers to redesign the game background, crops, props, etc. Happy Network was established in September last year, and it has been more than half a year now. Gao He finally came up with the final operating version and confidently reported the good news to Lu Chun. Although separated by the phone, Lu Chun can still clearly feel Gao He's joy and confidence at this moment. He also believes that his boss will not let him down. Then send me a copy of the game app. I'll try it out first. No problem. Gao He quickly sent an app installation file to Lu Chun through Feishin, and the file name showed that it was Happy Farm 1.0 internal beta. According to the plan, Happy Farm would focus on the mobile industry. It would focus on mobile phones and tablets, and would also take into account PC and web pages. The installation file was not large, and Lu Chun's mobile phone was a new model, so it only took 10 seconds to complete the installation. An icon containing the sun and farm elements appeared on the desktop of his mobile phone. He clicked on the icon, and the screen quickly turned pure white. A cartoon sun with sunglasses quietly appeared in the upper right corner. In an instant, it emitted thousands of golden rays of light. The words Happy Farm, which had been carefully designed in chibi font, appeared in the center. Below the theme were 4 options, such as login, registration, settings, and exit. Lu Chun clicked on the registration with interest, and the system's switch interface prompted whether to use QQ bundled registration. QQ is the largest instant messaging software in China and even in the world. It has more than 1 billion registered users, and the highest number of online users has exceeded 300 million. It can be called a giant in the IT industry. Many domestic games, especially mobile and web games, support QQ login, which is very convenient for users, and Happy Farm is certainly no exception. Lu Chun quickly registered successfully and logged into the game. The system prompted him whether to join the list of friends who already have a farm. This function is to call those friends in QQ who have already registered Happy Farm. In the future, it can also be expanded to group friends to increase the range of choices. Lu Chun chose yes. The most attractive thing about Happy Farm is its strong interaction. The more friends who play with it, the more fun it is, which can make people fascinated and even addicted. This game was extremely creative. It was once popular in Lu Chun's dream world, but it did not bring too many benefits to the game producer. Because when it appeared, smartphones had just begun to develop, and the channel of profit from the web was much narrower. But now that Lu Chun has moved Happy Farm over, there's no problem at all. Nowadays, mobile games are very popular, and a large number of venture capital is poured into it, constantly creating a legend. He is very satisfied with the smoothness of the registration and the design of the transition animation. Although it is a small game, the carefully crafted things are completely different from the shoddy goods. What he needs is quality. The most important thing is that the closed beta version of Happy Farm is very close to the original version in his memory. The degree of finesse is more than that, and the game interface is more beautiful and attractive. The initial players only have 6 pieces of land, and the system gave them the lowest level white radish seeds. Lu Chun opened a friends list and found that there were already 2 friends in it. Needless to say, These two friends are Gao He and Wang Xiaoling. Both of them have high levels. Lu Chun selected Wang Xiaoling and opened her farm. He found that the farmland she planted was ripe for harvesting. He quickly stretched out his thief hand to steal the vegetables. As a result, when his thief hand just put on the ripe pumpkin, he only heard two loud woof woof. A yellow-haired puppy rushed out from behind the house and accurately bit his thief hand. System prompt: you failed to steal, drop 2 gold coins, reputation value -1. Wang Xiaoling actually raised a watchdog. Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. A closed beta version still has a dog. Really, what kind of game is this? At this time, Chun Fei-er's voice sounded in his ear. It looks interesting. Lu Chun couldn't help but turn his head and see that Chun Fei-er had woken up, staring at the mobile phone in his hand without blinking, looking like a curious baby. Lu Chen smiled and said, "This game is called Happy Farm." Chapter 598. Happy Farm. Chun Fei-er's eyes lit up. Is that the game you used to play with your classmates? She knew that Lu Chun invested in a website to make mobile games, and she also knew the relationship between Lu Chun and Gao He, but Chun Fei didn't understand this aspect at all. She thought that Lu Chun was simply trying to help his classmates. She didn't expect that the game would actually be made now, and it was very fun. Lu Chun smiled and said, "Do you want to play? I'll install one for you too. You can grow vegetables when you are bored." He was very confident in Happy Farm. This interactive game has a strong attraction. Unless you are completely not interested in mobile games, you will inevitably fall into it once you start. Chun Fei certainly agreed, so Lu Chun installed the client on her mobile phone. The operation of Happy Farm was simple, including the functions inside. Not to mention an adult, even a few years old child can master it after playing a few times. So with the guidance of Lu Chun, Chun Fei-er quickly sowed white radish seeds on her farmland. Remember to water them regularly, get rid of insects and weeds. When the time comes, collect and sell them. Then buy new seeds and plant them. The extra money can be used to buy new land, tools, and advanced seeds. Remember, when they are ripe, you must collect them in time. I will steal them. Lu Chun smiled very treacherously. Because it was a beta version, although all the functions were complete, because it had not been officially launched, Chun Fei-er's farm friends were only Lu Chen. Chun Fei-er was so smart that she immediately found a loophole in it. "Then if I delete you from my friends, will you not be able to steal?" What she said was so reasonable that Lu Chun was speechless. Chun Fei-er laughed and proudly made a victory gesture at him. "This is shameless." Lu Chun shook his head helplessly and said, "I'm going to Hangzhou. Do you want to go with me?" Happy Network was about to go online, and Happy Farm was officially launched. Of course, he had to go to Hangzhou to take command. They also needed Lu Chun. Chun Fei-er put down his cell phone, hugged his waist, and said, "I won't go. A Chinese ghost story is rushing to the 1 billion box office. One of us has to stay in Beijing." In fact, it didn't matter if Lu Chun went to Hangzhou City a few days later. He had been waiting for more than half a year, so it didn't matter if he waited for 8 or 10 more days. However, a Chinese ghost story had already accumulated a lot of energy at its current stage. It was like a rolling snowball, and as long as it maintained its momentum, it would be able to accumulate a higher box office. Whether he was in Beijing or not did not affect much. Chun Fei-er was more than enough. After thinking about it, Lu Chun said, "All right, the other side is also very anxious. I'll be back in a few days at most." In. Chun Fei-er nodded and kissed him on the cheek. They didn't know when it started, but there was a tacit understanding between the two of them. They could understand each other's mood and intentions with a look and a movement. On April 13th, when the domestic box office of A Chinese Ghost Story continued to rush to a new peak, Lu Chun quietly left Beijing with his assistant and flew to Hangzhou in the afternoon. Gao He personally drove to pick him up at the airport. "Third brother, you're really fast." Xiaoling said that you might not be able to come. When he saw Lu Chun, he was particularly happy and said, "She and I just watched your Chinese Ghost Story 2 days ago. It was so good. I also bought a set of peripheral souvenirs in the cinema. Lu Chun said with a smile. Why didn't you say so earlier? If you had said so earlier, I would have given you a gold limited edition set. Gaoi laughed. To increase the sales of your movie, because of his relationship with Lu Chun, he often watches the entertainment news now. He knows that a Chinese ghost story has recently been a great success in China. The box office and the sales of peripheral products have become hot topics in the media. He knows what both mean to Lu Chun. The two haven't seen each other for a while, so they naturally had a good chat. They talked and laughed all the way to the company. The full name of the company established by Lu Chun and Gao He is Happy Digital Interactive Entertainment Company, Limited, or Happy Entertainment for short. It mainly operates projects and businesses related to online games and mobile games. Happy Entertainment is located in the new Binjiang IT Industrial Park in Hangzhou. It is known as the entrepreneurial incubator of Zhejiang New Youth. New internet-related companies settle in it and can enjoy multiple support policies from the government. The current Happy Entertainment is still a small company. The office is only less than 200 square meters in size, and there are about 30 employees. But although it is small, it has all the necessary departments, including technology, marketing, customer service, finance, and logistics. When Lu Chun arrived, it was not time to get off work yet. Most of the employees were there. Gao He gathered everyone and said loudly, "Everyone, welcome our chairman, Mr. Lu Chun." The employees immediately applauded hard, and everyone showed an excited look, especially the female white-collar workers in the marketing and customer service departments. Their eyes were shining. Everyone knows that the biggest shareholder of Happy Entertainment is the big star in the entertainment industry, Lu Chun. Many people chose to join Happy Entertainment because of this. It's just that this is the first time everyone has seen him in person, so they're naturally more excited. It's very encouraging. Lu Chun smiled and said, "Thank you. Everyone has worked hard during this time. Our Happy Network and Happy Farm are about to go online. Thank you for your efforts. I hope that I can work with all of you to turn Happy Website into the best gaming website in the country and make Happy Entertainment the top gaming company in the industry. If it wasn't for your hard work and wisdom, we wouldn't have succeeded. You are the most valuable asset the company has." As soon as his voice fell, there was another warm applause in the office area. Gao He added, "Our chairman just said that this month's bonus will be doubled." Wow! This time, the morale of the employees directly reached the max. After meeting and talking with the employees, Lu Chun chatted with Gao He in the CEO office. "Where's Xiaoling? Where did she go?" Gao He said, "She went to 7,795 headquarters to talk about the platform cooperation. She should be back soon." Lu Chun nodded. 7795 is a well-known web game and small game publishing platform in China. The daily traffic is very high. The company headquarters of this website is in Hangzhou, so it naturally became the first choice website for Happy Farm to promote. But as for how to promote Happy Network and Happy Farm, Lu Chun has his own ideas. The publicity resources he has now are far from what he used to have. Chapter 599. Wang Xiaoling rushed back to the company before work. When she saw Lu Chun, she was naturally very surprised and complained that Lu Chun didn't bring his girlfriend. She's a fan of Chun Fei. Gao He asked about the cooperation with 7,795 platform. Wang Xiaoling said that the contract has been signed. When the Happy Network is officially launched tomorrow, they can put advertising on the 7795 website. 7795 claims to have more than 50 million registered members and more than 10 million daily IP visits. Although the data is definitely fake, the effect of advertising on its platform is quite good. Of course, the advertising fee is not cheap. This time, I brought my men and money with me. In the evening, Gao He and his wife invited Lu Chun to dinner. After a few drinks in the private room, Lu Chun said, "You should be able to get the money tomorrow. Don't just think about saving money. You have to spend what you should spend, and you have to invite the people you should invite." Gao He and Wang Xiaoling looked at each other. Gao He scratched his head and said embarrassedly, Lao San, you have already increased your investment once, and this time, Wang Xiaoling quickly added, now our company's money is enough. Happy Entertainment has been established for 7 or 8 months now. Every month, the office rent, salaries, and other expenses are at least 600,000 to 700,000 yuan. Coupled with the investment of various equipment, the original joint investment of 5 million yuan has long been burned out. It was Lu Chun who added a sum of money to maintain the situation. Gao He and Wang Xiaoling are both recent college graduates. They have no experience in running a company. When they came here, they paid a lot of tuition fees, and then they've been burning money without any income. Naturally, the two of them will not be calm. When Lu Chun increased his investment, he did not dilute their shares at all. It remained unchanged at 10%. Now that he wants to invest money again, the pressure on the two of them is very great. Lu Chun smiled and shook his head and said, Enough? That's impossible. After a pause, he continued, For this game, Happy Farm, we have to invest at least 10 million yuan in publicity, and we have to continue to increase it in the future. And then there is the development of new projects, 10 million yuan in publicity fees. Both Gao He and Wang Xiaoling are stunned because Happy Farm is just a small game. It belongs to the leisure virtual business category in online games. The production cost is very low. If it is not developed by itself, but commissioned a mature and experienced company to produce it, the cost can be estimated to be saved by half. Lu Chun actually wanted to invest tens of millions of yuan in Happy Farm, which was really beyond their imagination. They couldn't help but ask, with such a high investment, can we earn back the cost? Both of them knew that Lu Chun was rich, very rich. A song could be sold for millions, but such a way of burning money made them feel heartache. Wang Xiaoling's original advertising budget for Happy Farm was no more than 1 million yuan. I'm confident in Happy Farm, and I believe that it can bring us 10 times or even dozens of times more returns. But we can't be satisfied with just 1 or 2 small games. We should have a bigger goal. Lu Chun patiently explained. The memory from the dream world gives Lu Chun a steady stream of inspiration and creativity. After Happy Farm, Happy Entertainment can continue to make Fruit Ninja, Plants vs. Zombies, Angry Birds, and other mobile games that have achieved great success in the dream world. But the development of these leisure mobile games is only laying the foundation for Happy Entertainment. Lu Chun's goal is more ambitious. Do you know the smiling, proud wanderer ? Gao He nodded without thinking and said, I know. I also bought a hardcover edition and put it home. It's a wonderful martial arts novel. It's really well written. The smiling, proud wanderer is currently a best-selling book in the domestic book market, and it has also set off a wave of new martial arts craze. There are many readers, and it has a large number of fans. Lu Chun said, I have bought all the copyrights of The Smiling, Proud Wanderer, and it is expected to start shooting the Smiling, Proud Wanderer movie trilogy in the second half of the year. Really? Gao He suddenly opened his eyes wide and showed a look of surprise. That's great. You must play Ling Hu Chong, right? Lu Chun smiled and said, We'll talk about this when the time comes. I won't hide it from you. The investment of these 3-inch The Smiling, Proud Wanderer reaches at least 200 million yuan. It will be the most important project I will operate this year. Gao He said sincerely, it will definitely succeed. Wang Xiaoling, who was sitting next to him, asked thoughtfully, Lu Chun, are you also going to adapt The Smiling, Proud Wanderer into a mobile game? Compared with Gao He, who likes to study technology more, Wang Xiaoling's mind is much more flexible, and after more than half a year of sharpening, she has shown a certain talent in business, so she is keenly aware of Lu Chun's intentions. Yes, Lu Chun clapped his hands and said, not only mobile games, but also real online games. If it was said that when Happy Entertainment was first established, Lu Chun mainly wanted to help the couple in front of him, but now his thinking about the development of Happy Entertainment has been broadened a lot. Happy Entertainment can be completely integrated into his big IP plan, sharing the two major parts of the IP adaptation of games and anime. Especially the game is a very important part of the plan. A movie takes 1 billion yuan in the domestic box office, divided into 3 or 400 million yuan. After deducting the cost and taxes, it will only be about 1 or 200 million yuan. But a well-produced and strong online game can easily make more than 100 million yuan a month, as long as it doesn't mess around. It's simply a hen laying golden eggs. Of course, this industry is also extremely competitive. Lu Chen's plan is to start with a small game like Happy Farm, so that Happy Entertainment can continue to grow and move towards the highest goal. Happy Entertainment's current territory is too small, and we will definitely move to a new place in the future. We need to recruit more professional talents, animation design, game planning, development engineers, programmers, art designers, Lu Chen said with fervor and assurance. That's why I said that the money in the company's account is not enough, and Happy Farm needs a process from online operation to realization of profits. We can't waste time here. Gao He and Wang Xiaoling had nothing to say. According to Lu Chen's goal, spending tens of millions isn't a lot. There was a huge difference between Happy Farm and the smiling, proud swordsman online game, including mobile games. The latter required a lot of manpower and resources to develop. Thinking that the two will still own 10% of the shares of Happy Entertainment in the future, it feels like a dream. Lu Chen raised his glass and smiled. Don't think too much about it now, come. Let's drink to success. Tomorrow is the day that Happy Farm is officially launched. Chapter 600. At 6:30 in the morning, Gao, he woke up from his sleep on time. When he was in college, he played games very late at night and often woke up at 8 or 9 o'clock during the day. His life was peaceful and comfortable. He had like-minded friends and a gentle and considerate girlfriend. He was really happy. It wasn't until graduation that he realized that life turned out to be so cruel. Fortunately, Gao He persisted. In order to have a better future with Wang Xiaoling, and in order to live up to Lu Chen's good intentions, he put all his efforts into Happy Entertainment. Every day, he would get up early and return late, rain or shine. He often stayed up all night in the company just to come up with the best products. The Happy Farm, which has just been completed, carries his dream without regrets. And today is the day when Happy Farm officially operates. It's an important day. Memories emerged in his mind, and Gao He's mind became very clear. He bowed his head and kissed Wang Xiaoling, who was still sleeping, and quickly got up to put on his clothes. Today, he will be the first to arrive at the company. You're awake? At this time, Wang Xiaoling also woke up. She opened her sleepy eyes, raised her head, and asked in a daze, "What time is it?" Gao He smiled and said, "It's just 6:30. You should sleep a little longer." Wang Xiaoling rubbed her eyes, gave him a white look, and said, "How can I fall asleep?" She also got up. Last night's party with Lu Chen touched the two of them a lot. Originally, both Gao He and Wang Xiaoling just wanted to run Happy Entertainment well. They didn't want to be at the top of the industry. They just wanted to earn back the investment cost and be satisfied with a car and a house. After knowing Lu Chen's vision for the future of Happy Entertainment, the two found that their vision was too shallow and their goals were too small. Everyone has ambitions in their heart, but some are big and some are small, and some are buried very deep. Lu Chen's heroic words easily aroused the ambitions of Gao He and Wang Xiaoling. As the first step to realize their ambitions, the success of Happy Farm is crucial. At this moment, Gao He's mood was uneasy and Wang Xiaoling was excited. The two washed up as quickly as possible, then casually ate breakfast and went out to take the subway to the company. Just after 8 o'clock, all the employees of the company had arrived. The normal working time was 9 o'clock. Lu Chen arrived at Happy Entertainment at 9 to participate in the Happy website's launch ceremony. The people present were all employees of Happy Entertainment. The so-called ceremony was just a specially prepared computer that could be completed with a click of the mouse. Calling it a ceremony was too much of an exaggeration. Wang Xiaoling announced loudly, "Everyone, let's give a round of applause. Let's invite our chairman to unveil Happy Online." Pa pa pa. Warm applause immediately rang out in the office area. Nearly 30 employees gathered together, and the young, smiling faces contained excitement, anticipation, nervousness, and various other expressions. Happy Entertainment had been around for a long time. It was time for Happy Farm to be taken out for a spin. In contrast, Lu Chun was undoubtedly the calmest. He calmly sat down in front of the computer, manipulated the mouse, and gently clicked the confirm button. The image on the screen suddenly changed, and the homepage of HappyNet instantly appeared. At the same time, it was projected on the screen by a projector. The applause was even louder. The website of HappyNet was purchased by Lu Chun as early as last year. It was not until today that its true face was revealed. The well-designed website was quite eye-catching. The overall style was simple and lively, and the main Happy Farm was placed in the most eye-catching position. Happy Farm 1.0, mobile version, tablet version, web version, and even TV version could be downloaded on the website. All versions were interconnected, and the advantage of QQ platform was used to expand customers. The game itself was completely free, but the game store provided paid props, and the profit was realized by selling props. Unlike mobile games and web-based games that ran away after making a profit, the paid props of Happy Farm did not seriously damage the game balance. For example, there were tools for automatic watering and weeding, but there were no automatic harvesting at a fixed time. Because automatic harvesting at a fixed time would destroy the balance, it would make the players who wanted to steal vegetables lose the fun. Another example would be a puppy that could guard the house. There was a probability that it would bite a thief. It wasn't like having a dog could sleep peacefully. At most, it would only reduce the probability of being stolen. The dog food was charged. A bag of dog food could be fed for 10 days for 1 yuan, and it was only 3 yuan a month. If you don't buy dog food, then the puppy will run away. It was believed that most of the dog users would be happy to pay a little money. The dog itself was designed to be very cute, and there were many breeds to choose from. Don't look at the low value of 3 yuan to feed dog food for a month, but if the number of users goes up, tens, hundreds, or even tens of millions of players online, it would be very considerable. Not to mention there were other props. User service and anti-cheating must be done the best. After completing the small ceremony of HappyNet, Lu Chun said to Gao He, "Don't be afraid to spend money. For an interactive game like Happy Farm, if the user scale and influence were small, it would be no different from other small games, and no one would be willing to spend effort to create a plugin. But if the impact was large and the number of users reached millions or even tens of millions, it would be completely different. Plugins were the destroyers of the game balance. Although the country has corresponding legal penalties, it is impossible to completely eliminate it. They can only rely on themselves to control the attack. If the plugin is allowed to run rampant, the paid props will not be sold at all. It is undoubtedly a fool's dream to want to recover the cost and realize profits. Many games are ruined by the plugin. Gao He patted his chest and said, "Don't worry. In terms of technology, I have invited a top master." In terms of technology, Lu Chun is very confident in Boss Gao. He said that it was a top master, so it must not be wrong. "That's good." Lu Chun smiled and said, "You don't have to worry about the game's publicity. I will take care of it." In today's era, it is no longer the era where good wine is not afraid of deep alleys. The real good wine needs to be put on the street and shouted hard to realize its value. Publicity and promotion are advertisements that throw money, but not all publicity needs to spend money. Reasonable use of their own resources, often with only a little money or even no money, can still achieve good results. In Lu Chen's mind, he already has a good idea. Chapter 601. The domestic film market was very hot in April. There were 2 Hollywood blockbusters and many new domestic films. Among them, the American Superstar Pictures had invested $170 million to shoot the sci-fi blockbuster Battle of Vulcan. Its domestic box office had exceeded $1 billion, which was an impressive result. However, in April, Battle of Vulcan was definitely not the biggest winner. The Sino-Hong Kong co-production, a Chinese ghost story, which was released on April 2nd, opened low and opened with a 15% screening rate. By the 20th, the box office had also exceeded $1 billion, and it was only a matter of time before it surpassed Battle of Vulcan. At the same time, a Chinese ghost story had also set a record of $125 million in peripheral sales. This not only set the top record for peripheral sales for domestic films, but it also left most of the imported Hollywood blockbusters behind. At the same time that it won high box office and peripheral sales, a Chinese ghost story continued to receive good reviews on the internet. The rating on Guangyin website was always above 8, and the freshness rating on Tomato website was not lower than 85%. Discussions about this movie had become a trend on blogs and BBS forums. Domestic filmmakers suddenly realized that, in addition to burning money to shoot high-budget special effects blockbusters and youth idol films, films that combined fantasy, ghost, romance, and other elements could also be so successful. This brought about a few rather interesting phenomena. In the book market, the sales of Strange Tales from a Chinese studio soared, and they even ran out of stock, causing many publishing houses to rush to print it. There were also many famous screenwriters in the industry who had received invitations from film companies and entertainment media companies to adapt the stories in Strange Tales from a Chinese studio. There were close to 500 short stories in Strange Tales from a Chinese studio. The famous ones included Lianxing, Fragrant Jade, Little Xie, etc. The Painted Skin and Nie Xiaoqian were two of them. These fantastical stories vividly expressed the longing and desire of young men and women for free love. The characters in the stories were vivid, the plots were bizarre, the structure was rigorous and ingenious, and the writing style was concise and exquisite. It could be said to be the pinnacle of classical short stories and was very suitable for film adaptation. With a successful example, like a Chinese ghost story, those sharp-witted investors naturally had their eyes on this collection of novels from the Qing dynasty. It was estimated that there would be many film adaptations released this year and next. The author of Strange Tales from a Chinese studio, Pu Songling, was from the Qing dynasty. He would not have any copyright requirements, so the cost of the adaptation could be said to be very low. As long as they followed the same pattern as a Chinese ghost story, they would be able to follow the trend and make some money. At this time, everyone also habitually ignored the huge investment, but box office failure, Painted Skin. The brilliance created by a Chinese ghost story made the newly established Chunfei Media a hit. Lu Chun and Chunfei also gained more popularity because of this. Their blog fans both exceeded 50 million, and their status in the circle rose again. Among the artists in the entertainment industry, movie stars had the highest status. The truly top-notch big shots basically all had movie accolades to their name. Some had achieved box office success, while others had won awards at the International Film Festival. The only thing that Lu Chun and Chun Fei lacked was actually these movie awards and honors. If the two of them could be crowned Best Actor and Best Actress, then they could be considered to have reached the peak. Chun Fei-er's subversive role as the villain boss of a Chinese ghost story had also become a topic on Waves' blog. Many fans praised her breakthrough in acting, but at the same time, they complained that she was not the real female lead. At 8:15 p.m. on April 20th, Chun Fei suddenly updated her blog. In the blog post, she posted a picture of a blue sky and white clouds and the sun shining brightly. In front of a cartoonish farm, there was a farmland filled with green plants, and there was an extremely cute puppy squatting beside it. If one only looked at this picture, which looked like an illustration from a children's book, everyone would definitely be confused and would not understand what it meant. At most, they could only judge that this was a screenshot of a web page game. Below the picture, Chun Fei added a line of text, warning someone, if you steal my vegetables again, I'll let the dog bite you. Behind the exclamation mark, there was also a cute emoji representing anger. Chun Fei-er's blog had more than 50 million fans. These fans were not zombie fans that had been created by marketing. Although there were definitely a large number of silent accounts, the number of active users was still very considerable. This can be seen from the number of reposts and likes of her usual blog posts. Ordinary sharing of feelings or selfies can easily get millions of likes and hundreds of thousands of comments. Therefore, when her blog post was published, it immediately attracted the curiosity of countless fans. Who provoked my Fae? Destroy him. What kind of game is this? It looks very interesting. 555. My Fae has also degenerated into a blog marketing promotion. Someone? Who is that someone? Could it be my Chun? Ah, my Fae is so cute. It must be Lu Chun. Hurry up and let the dog bite him. Sister Fae, what game are you playing? I want to play too. I feel like I'm going to be fed dog food again. In just over an hour, this blog post had been reposted more than 50,000 times, and the number of comments was as high as 100,000. The current popularity of Chun Fei could be seen. Everyone knew that this blog post of Chun Fei should be a game promotion, but she was different from those stars who advertise on the blog every day. Except for a few brands that she endorsed, she basically did not do online marketing. The rarer something is, the greater its value. This inevitably made people curious. What kind of game could make Chun Fei make an exception? Moreover, this was obviously not a large-scale online game. It was just a small game. At 10 o'clock, Chun Fei posted another blog post and took the initiative to solve the mystery. She said that she had recently been playing a small online farming game called Happy Farm. By registering with QQ, you can interact with your friends in the game. It was very interesting and fun. Finally, Chun Fei added a QQ number. This is someone's number. Everyone can add him, and then steal all the vegetables he grows together. After the exclamation mark, there was a sinister expression. This time, the fans immediately exploded. Someone was obviously Lu Chun. Lu Chun's personal QQ number was actually published by Chun Fei. Everyone didn't care whether it was game marketing or not. One after another, they added Lu Chun's QQ number. It was directly approved as soon as they added it. There was no need to apply for verification. There were even more fans who searched for Happy Farm on the search engine and found the Happy website at the first moment. Chapter 602. You have to compensate me. In Beijing's Zicheng Yuan's home, Chun Fei, who was sitting in front of the computer, said to Lu Chun, "Hurry up." Lu Chun smiled and said, "What compensation? I just stole a few of your pumpkins." Chun Fei glared at him angrily. "You still have the nerve to say that? You came up with such an idea to advertise your game. My reputation is completely ruined." Lu Chun laughed. "This is not an advertisement, right? Are you also fascinated?" Since playing the internal beta version of Happy Farm, that day, Chun Fei suddenly became interested. When the Happy Farm was officially launched, she installed the app client on her mobile phone as soon as possible. Not only that, she also promoted it to her friends and pulled a group of people to join it. Chun Fei had been in the industry for more than 10 years. The people she usually came into contact with were basically people in the industry. Of course, most of her friends were also people in the industry. Everyone gave her face to download and install the app, but she basically did not have much time to play. However, Happy Farm was different from ordinary online games. It was a casual game. Some people played their mobile phones in their spare time at work. First, out of curiosity or something else, they logged into Happy Farm as a pastime. Then after playing, 8 or 9 out of 10 people played it. Of course, Chun Fei herself was no exception. As the first registered user of Happy Farm, she had been promoted to level 5. The number of farmland had doubled. When she had time, she would take out her mobile phone to sprinkle water to kill insects. Of course, there was also the fun of stealing vegetables. The 2 blog posts she had previously posted were the game marketing methods that Lu Chun came up with. With the help of their huge fan base, Happy Farm was quickly promoted. It was just that Chun Fei basically did not do online marketing in the past. This time, it was an exception for Lu Chun. The effect was absolutely good. Gao He, who was far away in Hangzhou, called Lu Chun. He was very excited because since Chun Fei posted the second blog post, the number of visitors to HappyNet suddenly increased, at least hundreds of times more than before. This was the so-called fan effect. Popular celebrities like Lu Chun and Chun Fei had a high influence on the internet. If they wanted to recommend a product, they could often get a lot of attention in a short period of time. Gao He admired Lu Chun very much. Before that, Lu Chun asked him to increase the bandwidth of the website server and let the technical staff work overtime, so that HappyNet did not collapse under the impact of the sudden increase in IP visits. As for the number of downloads of Happy Farm, it had increased exponentially. The number of downloads in a minute was equivalent to the number of downloads in a day. It was unbelievable. Of course, this was only a temporary phenomenon brought about by the fan effect. Whether Happy Farm could succeed or not, the key still depended on the charm of the game itself, whether it could attract players, keep players, and make them willing to pay for props. In the lower right corner of the computer screen, 2 QQ numbers showed that they were in the login state. One of the icons was flashing wildly, showing that a large amount of information was being transmitted. This QQ number was the number published by Chun Fei on his blog. In order to promote Happy Farm, Lu Chun deliberately bought a pair of couple QQ numbers from QQ, mainly to face the public. There were no obstacles set, and anyone could add them as friends. Therefore, once the number was announced, it was normal to attract countless fans to add and greet them. Of course, Lu Chun did not have the time and energy to manage it himself. In the end, he had to throw it back to the company's public relations and marketing department. But tonight, he still took the time to reply to several fans in person. As for Chun Fei, he picked up the tablet and continued to browse the blog. The fans were enthusiastic. Sister Fei, rest assured, we will definitely steal all of Lu Chun's dishes. I just downloaded and installed it. I'm still learning. What's your QQ number? Please add me as a friend. 10,000 ton copper ball. This game is very simple, very easy to learn, and the production is quite good. It's a bit interesting. I like to play small games the most. For casual games like Happy Farm, the learning index is the lowest. As long as one is not stupid, anyone can learn it within a few minutes, and there will be no obstacles. However, because of the lack of challenge and learning, players are easily tired and give up after a few rounds. It is very difficult to rely on the small game itself to make money. At most, they can make some advertising to achieve profit. Although Happy Farm belonged to the category of casual games, its level of exquisiteness and interactivity were incomparable to other games of the same kind, especially the latter, which had an addictive magic. After Chun Fei and Lu Chun's cooperation in marketing, Happy Farm became popular in a very short period of time. It first caused an impact in the two's fan circle, and then spread like a plague. Computers, tablets, mobile phones. More and more people installed the Happy Farm client, either through advertising in the media, seeing it on blog forums, or being recommended by relatives and friends. Happy Farm also relied on the powerful resources of QQ, making it easy for players to interact with others in the game, making stealing vegetables a craze. When a Chinese ghost story was taken off the shelves on May 1st, National Day, this casual game had already set off a craze for people to steal vegetables. The speed and influence of the game left everyone in the gaming world dumbfounded. There were also a lot of negative news, such as children secretly using mobile phones to steal vegetables during class, white-collar workers opening web pages to steal vegetables at work, and some people got up in the middle of the night to go online in order to steal and pick vegetables, which affected their rest. However, these negative news could not affect the spread of Happy Farm. The number of registered users soared to more than 50 million in more than half a month, of which more than half were active users. This figure was very scary, and the surge in users also brought rolling money to Happy Network and Happy Entertainment. Although the props sold in Happy Mall were very cheap, they couldn't support the huge number of users. Therefore, after experiencing the process of burning money for more than half a year, Happy Entertainment smoothly embarked on the principle of profitability, continued to recruit people to expand their strength, and move towards a higher goal. Liu Chun gave the power to control and manage Happy Entertainment to Gao He and his wife, and led Xinfei Media to start preparing for the third TV series. In addition, there was also the recording of the reality show, The Voice of China. Chapter 603. East Coast District Huhai. It was already 3 o'clock in the morning when Anshin returned to her apartment. She opened the door carefully with the key. She didn't turn on the light after entering the apartment. She only used the light from her phone screen to light up the room. Then she tiptoed to her room. The 70-square-meter apartment was divided into 4 rooms. There were 7 people in total, including Anshin. She had been living with a friend for almost 2 years. Anshin was quite lucky. She came to Huhai alone 2 years ago and met this friend on the subway. She moved in the next day, which saved her a lot of money and a lot of trouble. Anshin, who was 23 years old, was a singer, a folk singer who took the lyrical route. She was currently singing in a bar in the old French concession of Shanghai. She could be considered as a member of the drifters. Those who lived in the capital were called drifters, and those who lived in Huhai were called drifters. Anshin couldn't survive in the capital, so she didn't have a good life in Huhai. Although many people appreciated her singing and voice, her ordinary appearance and body made it impossible for her to make a name for herself in this circle of talents. To put it bluntly, even if she wanted to sell herself, no one would pay for it. Therefore, other than a guaranteed salary, she usually didn't earn much in tips. In Shanghai, which was the most populated city in the world, she could barely survive. This was an era where appearance mattered a lot, and Anshin didn't belong to this era. "You're back." She had just put down her backpack when she heard a sleepy voice behind her. Anshin didn't turn around in surprise. She answered, "Yes, I woke you up. Go back to sleep." The other person nodded and didn't say anything else. Anshin moved more carefully. She took off her coat and shoes and crawled into bed. She had already washed up in the bar so that she wouldn't disturb others in the apartment. There was only one bathroom in the apartment, and the living room was separated into 2 separate rooms. The soundproofing was very poor. Because of this, it was easy for neighbors to have conflicts. Anshin didn't like to argue with others, so she would rather trouble herself. She was very tired. The warm bed gave an excellent warmth. Usually, she would fall asleep quickly after closing her eyes, but for some reason, she was still awake tonight. It was the Labor Day holiday these few days. There were many tourists from other places, so the bar's business was particularly good. It was rare for her to go to a few more venues and earn an extra 1 or 2,000 yuan. However, he couldn't keep the money. His family had called him yesterday, so he definitely needed to send the money back today. She was the eldest in the family, and she had 2 younger brothers and sisters. The annual school fees were not a small expense. At the very least, they had to be talented and able to compose songs. For a singer like her who only had singing skills without any distinguishing features, unless she was extremely lucky, she would not stand a chance at all. After being rejected a few times, Anshin was disheartened and buried her dream deep in her heart. "You really don't want to go?" Her hometown friend said regretfully, "I've always thought that you're better than many other celebrities. It'll be a pity if you don't try it out. I saw on the internet that the Voice of China has invited Liu Chun and Chun Fei as judges and mentors. There are also 2 mysterious heavyweights. Don't you admire Liu Chun a lot?" Liu Chun. Anshin was shocked. "Are you serious?" Among all the singers in the country, Anshin's favorite and idol was Liu Chun. She could basically sing all the songs composed by Liu Chun. Some of the folk songs that she covered were quite popular in the bars. She had always thought that Liu Chun was the most outstanding singer and composer in the country. If Liu Chun was the judge, why did she not know about this talent show? Her friend extended her phone to Anshin. "Take a look for yourself." Anshin could not help but widen her eyes. Her attention was immediately focused on the small phone screen. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.